I previously made a post with 3 infographics on this about a month ago, but it seemed to have flown over everyone's head in terms of understanding. I didn't get any comments back from it. So I think it was too complex. My initial infographic was too complex. And I didn't explain anything. I didn't have an audio. I just presented it as it was. So I've taken the time to create 20 additional infographics to give even more higher definition, clarity of understanding the specifics of this issue, of understanding why this foundational understanding is important, because it's how we live our lives. And understanding this will allow you to correct your life, because you're going to understand how your whole construction and the whole structure of life is built. And you're going to understand why lies, bullshit, and deceptions are never going to create lasting, effective change or lasting, effective, positive modalities of living, because they're being built on bullshit, built on negative knowledge, and that will never succeed into the future. So image 1, it's a picture of some houses and some foundations. So I'm going to give a brief description of the images, read what's on them, and then I'm going to go into more detail if it comes to my mind. So I'm going to go through these 23 images, and that'll probably take a while. But hopefully at the end people will understand the importance of this foundational living, because I don't see people understanding this. I made my natural law consciousness chart. I made the truth natural law, heaven and hell, symbolism from the Bible, ladder of consciousness. And the people who go through it, I'm sure it helps them understand, or they already understood it. But the problem is people who don't understand it are not going through my material. So you have all these people who think they're balanced in their brain. They think they're elevated in consciousness. Yet, they continue to engage in wrongdoings. They continue to engage in evil. They don't want to face the truth that they are engaged in evil, because they have this attachment through identification and their sense of self. They've become attached to illusions, deceptions, lies, bullshit, and false beliefs that they have taken into themselves and made a part of their ego personality identity construct. And they think that, well, I'm a good person, so therefore everything I do is good. I can justify everything I do because I know I'm a good person. I'm balanced. I'm pure-hearted. I'm connected. I channel the higher self. I meditate every day. Blah, 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 blah. All this bullshit justifications that mean absolutely zero, nothing, zilch in natural law. Because what matters in natural law is your behavior, your actions, what you create in the world. And how do we create in the world? We create through what we base our lives upon. The axioms that we take in become our foundations to construct our lives upon. So when you have a flawed and faulty foundation of bullshit and lies, well, you can see it in the manifestations of their consciousness, the third manifestation of action and behavior. You can see their internal mechanisms, their thoughts and emotions, and how they're in contradiction internally, and how they're in contradiction and in opposition with truth, love, good, right, morality, natural law, true self, higher will, God's source, and creation and reality. Their perceptions are not aligning with reality. They just want to believe whatever they want. That's why they won't accept that they're a part of evil. They won't accept how they need to change. They think everything's good. They meditate. They're into Reiki. They're channeling the higher self. They got a balanced brain in their belief. But it's all belief. It's all internal. It's all delusion. It's all fantasy. You know how you can see how people are? Through the words they use and how they express themselves. I understand this because I'm able to explain it in very high detail and high definition of clarity. And that's how you can tell that I know what the hell I'm talking about. And that's how I can tell when other people talk about things and they want to say, oh, well, animals are here for us and we're superior and that's the food chain and we're higher evolved. And they come up with all these excuses and justifications to continue perpetuating wrongdoings and evil. Well, I can immediately tell that internally, they're in internal contradiction. They're in an imbalanced brain state. There's no way that they're balanced if they still believe in this bullshit. There's no way they're integrated internally. And there's no way they're integrated with the universe and reality and truth and love and good and right, morality and natural law. They're not integrated with that either. They still have barriers to self-realization, to self-knowledge, and barriers to consciousness itself. They believe all this bullshit. Anyways, that was a little rant. I'll get back to the actual audio and I'll start describing these three pictures. So the first one, natural law of foundational living. The house we build, the choices we make, and the actions we take, what we accept in and become. It's the current constructed way of living based on accepted foundational axioms. So we have a nice little house. The house should actually be like screwed up because of the screwed up foundation, but that was going to take too much of my time. So anyways, you have a house. It's just supposed to represent a structure, a construct of your life, the actions, concepts, beliefs, everything. That's built upon underlying foundational axioms for living. Now these can either be true or they can be false. Now when they're false, they have cracks in them. So you have your foundation that you build your life upon, you build your actions and behaviors upon, you build secondary level concepts upon. But in that foundation, you got a bunch of bullshit, you got a bunch of lies, and that's just not going to lead to a proper construct for life. So I'll continue reading. The values and understanding of how to live in natural law is correlated with the amount of truth versus falsity embodied and acted upon to live and create that life. A faulty foundational understanding will produce a faulty output result in the end. If we fail to embody core principles of truth, our results will never be good enough because problems and effects will manifest that we don't want. We need to let go of attachment to false beliefs that are used as a foundational basis for our ego personality identity construct, sense of self, and ways of living. So the cracks are holes in our alignment with principles. Cracks are holes in our perception with reality. Cracks are failures to align our perception with reality. That's what these red cracks are. So when people express themselves and you're at a higher level of consciousness, you can tell how much bullshit they're into. Because they're expressing themselves. They're telling you how they are through their own words, through their own actions. All you have to do is learn to look, observe, see what is. And seeing things for what they are, that's a part of meditation. You don't have to sit in a lotus position and empty your mind of thoughts. And there's so many conceptions of what meditation is. But the clearest, most practical, most useful one that I've come across is something that a lot of us do every day. It's focusing the mind on seeing reality as it is, seeing what is in reality. And that's the first level truth. Is what is or has manifested, what is or has existed. That's truth level 1. That's what I call truth level 1. You wanna talk about how people aren't meditating just because they don't sit in a lotus position and close their eyes and cross their fingers and look down at their navel and try to empty their mind of thoughts? No. Apparently, real meditation has to do with clarity of mind. So when you're able to put your mind into in a state of clarity of understanding reality as it is, well, guess what? That's a form of meditation. You don't have to passively meditate. You can also actively meditate when you're exercising, when you're doing anything. When I'm cooking, I'm doing cooking, and I think of other things. I'm contemplating things about reality, things about I know I'm making connections, correspondences, correlations, and boom, as I'm cooking, as I'm chopping up my vegetables, well, I gotta run upstairs to my computer to write down the notes of these insights I'm having. And that happens because it's a form of meditation, it's a form of contemplation, it's a form of reflection. I don't have to sit in a position and try to empty my mind to make it empty and no thoughts. That's one view. But there's people who have meditated for decades who say, no, that's not meditation. So you want to give your own definition of meditation? Well, I'm giving you mine, and it happens every day. Everyone uses it who isn't obsessed over trivialities of life and alleged needs and desires and wants and pleasures and gratifications and thinking about the past and how they could have changed things and thinking about the future and worrying about the future. So that's the form of meditation most people want to avoid, and they view thoughts as negative because of that modality of worrying about the past and being depressed about the past and worrying about the future. It's all about, meditation is all about the present moment. So if you're in the present and you're thinking clearly and you're making correspondences and correlations between aspects of reality and understanding, then that is a form of meditation. So that's what I'll say about meditation. On with the picture. So underneath the foundation, underneath the blue box with the red cracks, that's your foundation. It describes lies, falsity, deceptions, manipulations, mind control, illusions, and bullshit all eat away at our efforts to truly create freedom, peace, harmony, and prosperity. We need to live from a solid quality core foundational basis built from principles of truth. Now there's the second part of the picture of this first image. If we want to build bigger and better, we need to make sure we have a solid foundation. Otherwise, the weight of our constructions will cause the foundation to give in and crumble away. The house of cards will fall apart with no solid foundation to uphold it. The more your life is built around bullshit, lies, falsity, and illusions, the more divergent you will be from actually creating what is truly good. So here we have the small house of individuals, and then we have a big house of people together, and you see this represents society in this second image. This is our civilization. We have people joining together, uniting, and forming a common foundational basis for living our lives. This is how society works. So in this common foundational basis where we have individuals, the two pink-red houses there, that's individuals building their lives, and you have the big house or the mansion, which represents a bigger construct. But the underlying, so the two smaller houses are people who've built up to a certain level. They've built lives this big, they've built lives this big, and then there's the one in the middle that's built a bigger life. Or that's two people building a life together, so it's bigger, or it's a group of people, or it's a society, or whatever. But underneath all of this, of everyone interacting together, we're all living in the same foundational basis when we're uniting. So when you unite, well, everyone's united, but under the same bullshit. You got all the cracks, all the bullshit, all the lies, all the deceptions, all the illusions spreading out everywhere under everyone's foundation, and we're all building on this faulty knowledge, and we're all building lives of bullshit. And that's why they're all twisted and curved. I didn't want to like make cracks in the houses, and that would have been just too much work, so I just tilted the houses to say like It's to represent that the foundation is shifting and crumbling underneath the constructs and structures of their life. The thing that they built their life upon, which is these houses, well, that foundation is crumbling because it's built on bullshit. That's why the house is all crooked and crumbling. That's what you need to imagine by these sideways houses, and they're all crooked, is that they're actually crumbling apart because the foundation is crumbling apart. So the text under this is, our overall collective ways of living in society may start to crumble and disintegrate from the weight and pressure of all the bullshit we have created for ourselves. We constructed too much, too big, based on lies, and eventually it falls like a house of cards. And this is what happens. This is what happens in our society. This is what's happening now. This is what's happened for hundreds of years. We keep going into the bullshit gradualism of temporary solutions, and then we revert back and nothing works because we're always going in a pendulum back and forth, left to right, with partial solutions because we don't want to take the time to evolve our consciousness, understand more of reality, develop a cohesive, integrated, congruent, and consistent understanding, which would then bring our foundations into an integrated, consistent strength of quality, root causal nature and basis for living our lives. And then we would have houses that could go bigger and better, and they wouldn't be all twisted and teeter-tottering and crumbling because they get too big, and then eventually everything collapses. So image number 2, I call it the tree of life and living. We drink from the data set or data pool of available information. Quality in, quality out. Garbage in, garbage out. If we intake low quality and erroneous information through what we pay attention to and focus on, and accept it as what is true, then the fruits we produce will be low quality and may even be wrong action due to the poison of negative knowledge. That is to say, false information taken as true and lived by. That's what negative knowledge is. These are the poisoned fruits and leaves that we produce from our tree of life. We are not integrated and consistent in our overall collective, co-created results. We produce some right action, yet produce wrong action as well. So the tree and the leaves and the fruits are the manifested external results, the symptoms, the problems, the solutions that manifest everything that we see. Under that is the unseen, the roots. That's the causal nature. So in the roots drink from a source. Okay, your roots that you live your life by, the core foundational structure, the core foundation and axioms you live your life by, those are the roots, the root causal factors that produce the fruits and the leaves. Those roots drink from a source. That source is a data set or a data pool of available information. Now, when your roots are tapping into poison, sludge, garbage, and that's the red circles, and they're drinking from that, well, your core foundation is going to be built upon that garbage and sludge and poison. And what you're going to get is those red-veined leaves that are diseased, and you're going to get that rotten fruit apple. That's what you're going to get when you intake garbage and low quality and poison and erroneous negative knowledge. That becomes part of your core foundation, part of your root causal nature of yourself. And then that manifests into poisoned leaves and poisoned fruit. If you drink from the clean water, quality information, not garbage, not what's erroneous, then what you're going to produce is a healthy leaf, healthy trees, healthy fruits, and that's going to be right action. The negative knowledge produces wrong action, and the positive knowledge of truth produces right action. The next image this is image number 3, I call it the tree of mind and heart. So you see the first image is I think it's the painting of Gaia by that famous painter guy, Gray. I think his last name's Gray. I don't remember. Anyways, so you see the spiral thing, it's coming in at the heart of the tree. Well, I made another info, another graphic underneath, which is the mind, the head, and I put a tree inside. Because our mind and our hearts are connected. And what affects both of them affects everything. So, quality in, quality out. Garbage in, garbage out. And I've also put this in the left and right, not for the left and right brain. I'm not depicting the left and right brain this way. People who want to denigrate the left brain and absolve the right brain of any fallacies are people who don't have the truth integrated in themselves, are people who don't understand the value of both, and they want to play favoritism. And this ties into the aspect of wanting to go for the polar opposite. It's like when we learn that the government is liars, and the government doesn't exist and it's an illusion, well, we go for, well, we don't need government, even before we understand it. And it's true. We don't need government, it's all lies, it's all bullshit. But when we learn of their lies, we go against it, we reject it. So in this mentality of rejection, people learn about the left brain, and they're like, they're told all these things. Oh, left brain is evil. Left brain is responsible for all the pollution and all the cities and all the construction, all the anti-nature, and it's all left brain bad and left brain evil. So they get into this rejection of the left brain, and what that brings them to is an automatic embracing of complete right brain. Forget about a balance. They don't want to unite them, the two of them together, and use them equally. No, they're just focused on right brain. So it becomes all about right brain just because they've been conditioned into a rejection of the left brain. So that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm just using colors and left and right to represent something, and it has nothing to do with left and right brain, okay? Just making that clear. It has to do with what you could call the right hand and the left hand. The right hand of God and the left hand of God. Right hand of God is Isis and Ma'at. And the left hand of God is Isfet and Eris. And if you don't align with the right hand, which is what is right, good, true, which is truth, love, good, right, morality, natural law, that's the right hand. When you go against those inherent laws of morality in the universe, what you're doing is you're putting out a force, putting out an action that goes against that law, and what you end up getting back is what you put out. So you want to put out bullshit? You want to take the left-hand path and go against the right-hand path? Well, then you're going to get bullshit. So that's what we keep doing. We take into ourselves as our foundational basis for living our lives, our root causal factors. We take in bullshit, lies, and deceptions, and we build a structure. We construct our lives based on that. And that's why we're on this left side here. We're on the left side of everything's burning down, everything's poisonous. You know, just think of doom. Dune. Sorry, not doom. Dune. You know, Dune. Fear is the Mind Killer. Muad'Dib. I was trying to think of the sand. Abraxas is the planet. I can't think of the fuel sand stuff. Anyways, you know, the left side is poisonous fruit. When you reject morality and you don't want to admit to yourself, you don't want to face yourself, you don't want to get through the barriers of self-realization, you don't want to evolve consciousness, you want to keep believing that no matter what you do, you're a good person, and animals are there for us to be abused, and all this bullshit and all these other things apart from the animal issue, you know. You're going to create chaos, you're going to create poisonous fruit, you're going to create poisoned leaves, you're going to create a shithole of a planet, you're going to create all this bullshit and all this shit, and you're just going to create more evil. And that's what this picture represents. So truth, good and right taken in, generates the reflection of what we put out. Creating with higher frequency, blue, will generate that level of care, green, which equals a beautiful tree and healthy fruits. Creating with the lower frequency, red, will generate corrupted care, not true care, not true green. It is green because it's what you generate, but it's a dark care. It's not a healthy green care. It's not the true care in alignment with truth, love, good, right, morality, natural law. So this lower frequency creation will create is the corrupted foundation, which will create corrupted, poisonous, and rotten fruits. That's the toxic tree, leaves, and rotten, poisonous fruits. So that's that image. Just wanted to depict that. So this is why this foundation information matters, because you're going to deny truth and you think you're going to create good by being ignorant, by fearing facing yourself in the mirror. You don't want to face the animal issue and you think you're going to create good. Wrong. You want to implement gradualism and external control and you think you're going to create good. Wrong. This is why the foundational understanding is so pivotal for creating the future we want. Image 4. This is a recreation of the original infographics I made a month ago. I've reworked it, changed it, added some a legend kind of to explain things. Anyway, so I'm going to explain this infographic that I previously made that seems to have went over people's heads. Core foundational principles of truth as a basis for living. What does that mean? It's foundational basis and root causal factors for choices, actions, behaviors, living, and being. How we create our overall conditions through what we accept into ourselves. It's the strength, solidity, integrity, quality, and groundedness of actions in truth, love, good, morality, natural law, etc. So the foundations we take in, the axioms, we use as a basis for living, for being, for behaving, for acting, for making choices. This is how we live our lives. This is everything to do with how we live our lives. So when you look at the image, just like before, the blue, well, the blue is the foundational understanding based in truth, right, good, love, morality, natural law, etc. The red blocks, their foundational understanding based in falsity, lies, deceptions, and illusions. These are axioms we take in. So underneath the overall structure, I've written axioms and foundational basis for living is less integrated and connected. So when you have more lies, deceptions, and illusions, these red blocks in your foundation, well, you're less integrated and connected in your life. So people who reject the animal issue, the animal morality issue, and they don't give a shit, and all they care about is themselves, and they want to be Satanists, and it's all about their self-preservation and their survival because animals don't matter, and apparently humans are not animals, and all these idiotic, fallacious conceptions in their minds and imaginations to live in a fantasy delusional world. Well, you're not integrated and you're not connected. That's the truth. So the gray blocks, those are secondary layer conceptual blocks. They're built upon the foundational truths or foundational negative knowledge and erroneous information that we take into ourselves and then we base our lives upon. So these are actions, these secondary conceptual blocks are actions and ways of living based on primary core foundational axioms. I'll just continue with the legend, the two next pieces underneath, just before I continue with the main description. So when you have gray over red, and then the gray dips into the red, well, this represents a foundation constructed from falsity. So the gray built over the red is concepts built over missing aspects of truth. You don't have the foundational understanding in the blue blocks of truth, right, good, love, morality, natural law. your blue block is missing. So you have a negative knowledge or a missing truth, and you're building on top of that. So your structure might be okay, even though you're missing the truth, because you're not building in negative knowledge. But when you have that gray that goes into the core foundation, into the red, well, that's negative knowledge. That's building your life on bullshit, on lies, on falsity, on deceptions, because you're into that falsity, deception. You're right into it. You're not just hovering over it. When you hover over it, you're still building something, but it's still turning out good, even though you don't have the true core foundation below. But when you're building in negative knowledge, that means you're building into the red. You're in the red. You're in the bad zone. So when you build from there, what you construct above these gray blocks, you're going to be constructing bullshit ways of living. You're going to be constructing wrongdoings, and you're going to be constructing evil. Conversely, when you have only blue blocks, well, that's a solid quality foundation. That's when your concepts are built on that solid, quality, integrated, grounded foundation. And you can't put your constructs into that. You can't go into it. It's not a negative space. It's a positive space. So you build above it. That's like above zero. That's why we need to get out of the negative knowledge. We need to get out of negative manifestation. We need to get out of negative wrong action. It's not just less wrong action that's needed. We need to get above zero. We need to bring the negative. We need to bring our wrong actions to zero, and then push beyond that into positive. So when you have your secondary constructs and conceptual blocks, your actions, your ways of living, your behavior, when that's built on a solid quality core foundation of blue blocks, then you're good to go. You're building solidly, you're building right, you're doing right action. And here I put truth level 1 and truth level 2. This is how I've come to understand two different forms of truth, which I've added to my truth article on the site, and it's been sporadically mentioned elsewhere. But truth level 1 is what is or has manifested in reality, what is existing or has existed. That's what Mark Passio uses as his basic definition of truth. But I've come to understand there's two truths. I don't limit truth just to this level 1. This is level 1. It's like it's the effects manifested. It's what is or has manifested in reality. It's what exists or has existed. It's come into being. Now, truth level 2 is the ways of living in truth: love, good, right, morality, natural law, true self, higher will, God, source, spirit, etc. This is the level of truth that we need to be taking in, aligning with, accepting, embracing, embodying, and being in our lives. These are the root causal factors that we need to be basing our lives upon. These are the causes that will manifest the results that we want. So that's truth level 2, which creates truth level 1. Now, I don't like limiting explanation of truth just to what is or has existed. I find that explanation very limiting, because there's the truth and love and good and right that doesn't yet exist, but we can create it. That's why there's two levels of truth. There's what does exist, and then there's the other layer, that what we need and should create to exist, because what exists now isn't good enough. Our current conditions are not good enough. So that's what this is. Truth level 1 and truth level 2. Level 2 creates level 1. Level 1 is what we see externally everywhere. It's overt. Level 2 is covert. It's internal. It's unmanifested. It's hidden. It's unseen. That's why it's synonymous with the spiritual, because it is unseen. You can't see these things. We only see them through the effects that are manifested in truth level 1. So I'll just describe the graphics, the two paragraphs I have there. So I put some numbers. So these are all columns you can look at. When there's a column, the secondary layer conceptual blocks are built upon the primary foundational core root causal axioms for living our life. So the things above come from the things below, and the secondary layers are also interconnected with each other. And the foundational blocks are also interconnected with each other. That's why we have correspondence and correlation and pattern recognition and judgment and discernment, differentiation and sameness and difference, because we can make all these connections. So I'm going to describe column 1 and 2 as being interrelated to produce the secondary structures of column 1 and 2, and then 3 and 4 foundations produce the secondary structures of column 3 and 4. So columns 1 and 2 produces some right action. You see, because columns 1 and 2, they're not into the negative knowledge as I described before. They're built on some solid quality core foundational principles of truth in the blue blocks, but they're also built over some negative knowledge or missing truth. They're not directly in the negative knowledge, so they're not building falsity. They're still building right action regarding this particular column, and the columns are particular modalities of action, being, living, their concepts, their subjects, things we learn about. That's why they're in columns. So column 2, we're still building in that structure, that secondary layer manifestation. We're still building okay, we're still building in right action, but we're still missing a core. Now, so produces some right action, but foundation is missing core principles of truth to live better. Column 1, right action results with knowledge of why it's right. That's why you have the blue is solid right down. You have it all in that column. It's right action. The foundation is solid. A core principle of truth about the subject concept has been acquired and embodied. Example: not stealing the life, sexuality, or property of other human beings by understanding the basic core foundation of non-violence, no harm, right action, etc. towards humans. So column 1 and 2, I guess they represent morality towards humans. So there's different aspects, like 3 blue blocks and 1 that's missing, and then we build our lives upon that, and that's those gray blocks. And that's the lives we're trying to build based upon those axioms we've taken in. So columns 3 and 4, that's some right action, but more wrong action. The foundation is missing core principles. The structure is built in negative knowledge or axioms. That's where you see that gray one going right down to the floor of the foundation. That means behind that gray is all red. You're built in negative knowledge 2 layers deep. So example, understanding a part of non-violence principle and applying it to humans, yet the structure above is missing the foundational core strength and integrity in clarity of understanding and is built in flawed axioms. That's that column 3. It's built right into the negative knowledge, right into the flawed, erroneous axiom. And wrong action is created through this negative knowledge acceptance. That of not accepting other animals into morality and recognize the wrong in enslaving or murdering them. So that's the difference. That's how I'm graphically representing what happens in our lives. When you have your solid blue foundation, it's solid, you build your structures, you're going to be in right action. When you're missing aspects, well, then you're going to be building over missing foundational truths, or you're going to be directly building in foundational lies and foundational axioms built upon bullshit and deceptions. And that's not going to create a real future of freedom and peace. It's just going to create more wrongdoings and more evil. And the second image I have is the person has done more work on themselves. They've healed a lot of themselves. In the above image, there was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 6 positions where our secondary structures are built directly into negative knowledge, directly into bullshit, and we're creating wrong action. Whereas the second one, there's only 2 places where they're still building in wrong action and creating evil in the world. But everywhere else, they've healed themselves. They've purified themselves. They've transmuted. They've sublimated. They've gained more conscious awareness of reality. They've chosen to align themselves with truth, love, good, right, morality, natural law, higher self, higher will, etc. But they still have some red blocks, but they're not building in the red blocks. They're only building in the negative knowledge in 2 places. The other red blocks, that's just missing truth. You're missing foundational aspects of truth, but you're still building your structure in right action. It's just your right action might be limited in some places. That's why there's holes and there's gaps in the structure. The structure's gotten bigger because you've gotten more. You've understood, reached, grasped, embraced more of the truth, and you can build more of your life based on that strength. And that's why the structure, the gray structure, is bigger. But it's still got holes in it, and you're not complete everywhere because you're still missing aspects of truth. You're still missing core foundational principles of truth. Those blue blocks. You still have some red blocks which represent missing information. And if the gray is built into that red, then it represents negative knowledge completely that you've accepted into yourself, and you're building a life based on that negative knowledge, which means you're building wrong. And eventually it will collapse because it cannot sustain building wrong, building from flawed foundations and creating wrong action in the world. You cannot sustain life that way. So here he has 2 in the wrong, and from the progress previously, the person's improved their life, so they're going to keep improving, and eventually they'll get rid of those 2. So the core foundational truth of non-violence is embodied more. So we're looking at column 3 again. So it's embodied more instead of going 2 levels deep, it's only 1 level deep. So they're embodying more of the truth, yet they're still in wrong action. For example, they're no longer murdering innocent animals, but they're still participating in eggs, milk, cheese, etc., which is exploitation of life. It's not your property, but you're still exploiting it because you want to, and you haven't integrated and connected yourself enough with truth to be able to understand that and live it, embody it, and be it in your life. So you're still in the negative a bit, and you still have work to do on yourself to get yourself out of that negative knowledge and strengthen your secondary construct even more by strengthening your primary root causal core foundational principles of truth. And that's to actually acquire that truth and bring it into yourself and become it. So image number 5, and the rest is like all of this is just more imagery, more images, more symbolism, more ways of visually conceptualizing what I understand, and I'm trying to get other people to understand. So everything that I've created, all these images were originally based on that first foundational block of blue, red, and the gray secondary layers. That's what I originally conceived of. It took me a while to be able to take what I understood deeply within me and express it into a picture to help people understand. But that's the image, that's the construct I came out with to explain what I understand about life. Apparently that didn't go over with people. They didn't like the blocks or whatever. I didn't get any feedback much, only from a few people who seemed to understand. So that's why all the other images are all based on that. The tree at the beginning, the house at the beginning, all that is based on those foundational block images that I made. I'm just trying different ways to illustrate it in order to provide that visual understanding. So image 5 I call foundational living construct and levels. So the foundational construct, you can see how this is very similar to the previous one and how it's starting to mirror the house. You can see, you can create the correspondences between the house depiction, and you can even see the root from the tree, and you can see the foundational blocks and how they all tie together. See that you have the core foundational basis, the axioms at the bottom, which is the blue, and then you have your cracks, which is the red, and then when you build above that, you have your first level manifestation for living and being. And then you have your second level manifestation for living and being. You can even have a third, a fourth, a fifth. It's nth level. It goes to whatever number you want to put in, however far you want to construct, which I'll give visualizations and concrete examples in order to understand this as we progress. So when you have a crack in your foundation, well, that crack spreads up into your first level manifestation, and there's more bullshit. And then if you're going to construct further onto that flawed first level and flawed core foundational crack, well, you're going to create even more crack, and it's going to be more red and more wrong. So here I've put into arrows to represent the upward mobility. So I'm going to first describe the specific application with reference to the crack. That's why this arrow is red going to gray. So from the bottom, the core foundation is you're failing to recognize the no harm principle of other beings' rights, your acceptance of the predatory mind virus, your acceptance of the master-slave relationship. That's what the crack is at the core. Now, when you manifest it in your life, after you accept that erroneous belief system, that erroneous axiom into your ways of living, how that manifests on the first level of being is you accept slavery and murder of other beings. Now, when that progresses and degenerates further from that flawed axiom, from that crack, from that bullshit, from lies and deceptions and illusions, well, the second level manifestation is now you accept slavery or murder of other humans. So first it starts with acceptance of the predatory mind virus of the master-slave relationship. Then you, with that accepted, it's validation for doing slavery and murder, violence, harm, exploitation against non-human animals, other beings that aren't humans. And then once that becomes accepted, well, then you further degenerate and degrade your humanity, and you become acceptance of slavery, murder, violence, exploitation of other humans. Okay? I'll be going into that particular specific example even more further as we progress. And the general application from blue to gray, which is the way it works normally. You have at your bottom your root causal factor. It's a core foundational axiom for living. It's the driving force, the emanation, the essence, the generative source. That's where everything generates from. It's from that causal, unseen realm, internal to you. And then you manifest first level, second level, third level, fourth level into reality. That's what you create. So there's the second part above the bottom part of the blue-gray arrow. The second part is the first level manifestation. It's the first constructs of life built upon driving force, ways of being, living, choices, actions, behavior. And then your second level manifestation is the next level structures built from previous constructs. And then your third level will be built on the second, first, and the core. And the fourth level will be built on the third, second, first, and the core. And on we go. But they're all predicated on what has come before. And everything is predicated on what we take into ourselves as our ways of being, as our ways of living, what we view as valid behavior, what we view as valid actions, choices, and what we view as truth. That's what we take in. And that's what we live by. So the next image, image 6, I call it the pyramid of identification and connection for value and morality. So lack of identification leads to devaluation of life. and justification of harm and violence. So I briefly talked about this in my Truth is Love article. I've mentioned it elsewhere. This is going into my next big article that I have been putting off starting, which has to do with the predatory mind virus, and where all of our problems, the root causal factor for all of our self-inflicted suffering that we co-create together, all the misery, all the pain against other humans that we inflict, comes from our acceptance of the devaluation of animals and allowing us to enslave, exploit, harm, violate, and murder them. They have rights. They have a right to life. They have a right to freedom just like us. And when we violated that, it was the starting point of further violations, which then progressed onto humans, which is what image number 5 was about. And that's the progression, first, second, third level manifestation. I'll be getting into this even more. This isn't the only picture that deals with the animal issue. This is the core issue for our time. If we can resolve the animal issue, everything else that we have as a problem will become more easily resolvable. So to continue reading image number 6, viewing the foundational axioms as layers of solidity and quality of life generation, who has rights and who can't have their rights violated. This is the thinking of only I have rights, only my kin has these rights. This is the degradation of identification and connection for value of others. So first it starts with me. Only I have rights. Then it's only my kin has these rights. That's my family. Then only my race has these rights. Then only my community or nation has these rights. Then it's only my species, the human animals, have these rights. And see how it degrades? How our identification, well, not that it degrades, but our identification starts from the self and then progresses, it expounds, it goes from there towards other identification. So we have, so now the pyramid drawing, we have less identification and connection, more disconnection and separation, less value of other beings, and it's a weaker foundation for living when we're at the top. You can see how I described it. At the top you have a bunch of cracks, a bunch of deceptions, a bunch of lies. All it is focus on the self. That's why it's a smaller block. And as I will be showing later, when I inverse the foundational visualization, you'll see how this actually represents a weaker foundation. But we're not there yet. So at the top you have less identification, less connection, more devaluation, weaker foundation. It's less alignment, embodiment, being and living in truth, love, good, right, morality, natural law, etc. Now as you go down to the bottom, you have a strong foundation. That's more identification and connection, more value of other beings, a stronger foundation of living. It's more alignment, embodiment, being and living in truth, love, good, right, morality, natural law, etc. It's more integration and more connection with truth and with what is right, good, and true. So at the core level, when you identify with all animal species as having rights and you don't have a right to violate them, that core level is the most development of the heart center, of care, of compassion, of empathy, of conscience and morality and consciousness itself. When you get down to that core and it's refined and it's solid and it's quality and it's strong and you don't have cracks in it, that's when you have the most developed heart center and care, morality and all that stuff. And the higher you go up, the more you disassociate, the more you de-identify, the more you disconnect, the more you separate, and the more you devalue life. So, we start at self, and then we go to our family, tribe, or our clan, and then we identify with our race. That's an extension of the clan, of the family. Then we identify with community and village. Then we identify with the geographical sector, the nation. Then we identify with all humans and all races. So a lot of people, right now, they're at that second to last one. They're identifying with all human animals, all races, We've gotten rid of racism. But this is the whole point of the graduation. We've done it gradually in steps of identification, when all we had to do was go to the root causal source, and learn of the identification and similarity and differences and the connection we have with other sentient animate beings that did us no harm, and we have no right to violate their rights to life and freedom. Once you get there, all the other bullshit above it disintegrates and evaporates. It's gone. So why would you target each layer individually to progress over time, over years, over decades? Who knows how long? How long has it taken for society, for the Occidental world, the Western world, or the globe, or the world in general, to progress through these stages of, satanic self or satanic family tribe is the only thing that matters, and then we identify and associate more with our community, and then to the nation, then to all humans and all races on the planet. But you have people, the vegans, who are identifying with other animal species, and we're recognizing that, and we're becoming more integrated and connected, but there's still so many people on the planet who are not getting down to that level of heart development, of care development, of consciousness development, of conscience development, of morality development, and empathy and compassion development. People aren't getting there. They don't want to face that they are a part of evil, that they are a part of wrongdoings. They're still too attached to aspects of their false identification with lies and bullshit that they are too comfortable with, and it's too much of a convenience in their life for them to let go of. These are the attachments we need to reject and completely obliterate out of our lives. So I'll continue with image 6. The more of a core foundational basis we are living our lives by, the stronger our foundation is, and the greater quality constructs we will manifest as a result. So, taking it back to the previous images, I kept it all in blue and red just to show the progression of how the blue dissipates and goes away as we take in more bullshit and lies. Or conversely, if you start from the top and go bottom, you have more bullshit and lies, you have more cracks and more holes, and they go away as you gain more conscious awareness of reality, as you identify more with things, as you learn to give meaning to things and see the truth in it, and recognize the truth in it, and recognize the true meaning and purpose. And that's conscious awareness. You're just becoming more aware of reality, and that's a primary way of evolving consciousness. So, the human, animals, all races, that's the first level manifestation. Then the geographic sector, second level, third level, fourth level, fifth level. When you get to the fifth level, well, it's the worst, because you kept degenerating your way of living. So back to reading that paragraph. If you only live for yourself and your immediate family, then you are living as a Satanist. The principal tenet of Satanism is the self-preservation and survival of yourself above all others as being a, quote, right and justifiable action, no matter who is harmed or whose rights are violated. Only when we get down to the most strong, solid, integrated quality and grounded in truth axioms for living our lives will we actually be creating quality living for ourselves and other beings. This is the only way to true freedom and peace. People do not understand this. I'm trying my hardest to get people to understand this core root causal factor and how it's going to totally change everything for the better. Veganism is the solution. Veganism is the future. You don't like the word veganism, use another word. I don't care. It's all about doing the least harm you can, because you've gained more aspects of conscious awareness, you've evolved your consciousness, you understand more of truth, and you're ready to align and embody more of truth. And what is that truth? Well, that's of not violating other innocent beings' life who you don't have a right to violate. Once you recognize morality to that depth, then you're capable of embodying it to that depth. But people don't want to recognize it. They want to remain attached, and they want to keep believing that they have balanced brains. They want to keep believing that they're so fucking evolved. They want to believe so many things just because they have all these internal aspects in their lives, like, oh, I meditate every day. I communicate with the higher self. I channel the higher self. Oh, I see fourth dimensional beings and fifth dimensional beings. And oh, I'm so evolved in consciousness. Bull fucking shit. Pardon my language, but that's bullshit. You know why it's bullshit? All I have to do is look at your manifestations in reality, whether you're creating right action or wrong action, whether you understand morality conscious, whether your heart center or care is developed enough, whether your compassion is developed enough. And I can see this all by your expressions of words, by what you represent of yourself and your actions and choices. So you want to justify, excuse your participation in the exploitation, enslavement, harm, violence, and murder of other innocent sentient beings that did you no harm, right away, right then and there. I don't need to know anything about you. I can tell that you're not that evolved in consciousness. You're not that evolved in understanding morality or conscience or compassion or empathy or care or a developed heart center. You want to think you have a balanced brain? I'm going to deny that too. People who engage in wrong action and deny morality do not have a balanced brain. So a side note on meditation. The people who I've met who meditate every day, and I don't know how long they meditate, but one person 45 minutes, an hour before they go to bed, talk about the animal issue, 2 years, still not ready to change, not ready to change. Why? Because they're so obsessed with the internal states. It's all internal. Meditation, meditation, meditation. Oh yeah, that's so great. Meditation. I want to see other realms. I want to see other places. Oh yeah, you keep lying to yourself. You don't need to change anything in your life. All you need to do is meditate. I see fourth dimension and fifth dimension, and that's the real reality. That's the causal realm for what creates our reality. So since I can see those fourth and fifth dimensions and whatever imagination, whether it's true or not, well, therefore I conclude that I have a balanced brain, I have a developed heart, I have developed care, I'm in alignment with truth. No, you're not, because you're still engaging in wrong action. I don't care what fucking lizards, what aliens, what transdimensional beings you claim you see. That doesn't matter shit to me. It doesn't matter one iota of value to me. Nothing. What does matter to me is your actual actions and how you're either creating wrong action or you're not creating wrong action. Either you're creating evil or you're not. Either you're in that negative knowledge zone below zero, or you've managed to get yourself to at least the zero starting point where you can begin to create positive results. But so long as you're below zero in negative knowledge and creating evil and exploiting and enslaving other animals, I don't give a shit about all these other claims you want to profess about yourself, how balanced you are, and how meditation helps so freaking much. You're just lying to yourself. And why? How do I know you're lying to yourself? By the words you use to express yourself. You're in contradiction, you're in opposition, you're non-integrated, you're non-consistent, you're non-coherent, you're non-congruent, you're non-united, you're divided, you're non-harmonized. It's all bullshit. You tell yourself one thing, but your actions betray your words. And that's how you know when people are full of shit. When they say one thing, but their actions betray themselves. And they don't even have the evolution in consciousness to even recognize how full of shit they are by the words they express to others. So you want to meditate every day? Go ahead. I don't meditate ever other than what I've explained at the beginning. I can cook. I can focus on certain things to create connections and correspondences and gain insights and get a clarity of mind and understand reality as it is, well, that's the meditation I like to do. Sitting in a position and trying to empty my mind, sorry, I don't find that useful. I'll use the other meditation that I find so much more beneficial, that doesn't keep me in a internal feel-good state of escapism, because all I want to do is meditate, and all I want to do is claim that meditation is all that's needed, and all I want to do is claim that anyone that doesn't meditate doesn't evolve consciousness. Well, I can prove that wrong right now. I don't meditate in a seated position and lotus position, all these other things that all these freaking gurus and spiritual bypassing frauds want to interject and say that, oh, this is needed to evolve spiritually. No, it's not. Look at me. Look at where I've gotten. Look at the understanding I'm able to express. Look at the work I've done. Look at the pictures I've been able to create with my creativity and imagination and the insights I've gained. And I haven't done that with any of that bullshit meditation. So if that meditation works for you and you want to use it a few minutes a day, go for it. But I see meditation as having a specific purpose. So if you need healing and you need to heal yourself from the stress of daily life, fine, empty your mind and do that thing. For me, I got other methods. I can just dissipate it. Negative, okay, I'll deal with it for 5-10 minutes and then I'll let it go. You want to meditate? Well, go ahead and meditate. I use meditation for constructive means to process information, to create correspondences and connections. That's what happens when I cook, when I do some exercise, you know. My mind is able to focus on certain things, and I develop correspondences and correlations. I do that at my computer. You know, I can just sit there and poof, make connections and things will come to me. I don't need to sit in a position and try to empty my mind. That's my point about all this meditation shit. All the people who want to think that, oh, you have to have this type of meditation to be spiritually evolved or to evolve consciousness, they're full of shit. They don't know what they're talking about. They have an attachment and they use meditation as a crutch in their lives. Just like people use drugs in their lives as a crutch, as escapism. People who use it every day and want to believe it's the only solution, and if you don't meditate, then you don't have any right brain capacities, and if you don't meditate, then you're never going to evolve consciousness, and if you don't meditate this way, then you're never going to be spiritual. Well, that's bullshit. Categorically bullshit. Bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. I don't know how many times I can say it. There's other ways of meditating. There's other ways of figuring things out that are more productive than sitting and trying to imitate this mind blankness to get yourself feeling this internal feel-good, peaceful state of pure love and pure happiness and pure joy and all that. I'm not interested in those feel-good states. I have no desire to feel good about myself all the time. I want the truth. I want the hard truth. I want to face it so that I can change. And people who meditate all the time, like the person who I know who does it every night for like a half hour, 45 minutes, an hour, well, they're not changing themselves. They're still addicted to a bunch of shit and they don't want to let go. Another person I've recently met on Facebook, you know, they're all about meditation. Anyone that puts down meditation, well, they're going to get banned. Because, oh, you're left brain imbalanced. No, you're the one who's in right brain imbalance because you have this obsession with meditation when it's clearly not needed in the way you describe it. Now this other bullshit imaginary right brain imbalance fantasy living that this person espouses, it's ridiculous. It's a joke. And they think they're so evolved, that they're so connected, and they're channeling the higher self and all this bullshit when they don't even understand that all you're doing is you're making connections yourself that you've previously come across. You think that you'd be able to make connections about things and have insights if you never even had initial information processing come in to have you understand things? No, you're doing the connections yourself. It's not the higher self. You just want to tell yourself that you're connected to the higher self and you're channeling the higher self so that you can feel good and special and elevate yourself in the eyes of others, and they'll think of you, oh wow, look how special he is. He's communicating with the higher self. He's channeling the higher self. Wow, how special he is. I have so much reverence for him. It's just bullshit. You're presenting a bullshit of yourself to others because you believe that bullshit yourself. So back to image number 6. The second pyramid I did, instead of calling it the pyramid of identification and connection for value and morality, which is going from self to all animal species, that's how we identify or de-identify, connect or disconnect with other life, and how we value or devalue other life, and how we recognize morality or immorality in our actions. Well, this bottom pyramid, I've termed it the predatory slavery mind virus and disconnection pyramid. So it's similar to the one above, but it deals more with I guess rights. So if we start at the bottom, all animals are free and have rights, and then we degenerate that into, well, some animals have rights, and then we degenerate that even further into some animals have no rights. You can think of Animal Farm, some animals have more rights than others, and that's the world we live in now. We do that to animals, and other humans do it to us. Some humans have more rights than us, apparently. They want to imagine and invent this justification in their fantasy delusional minds, and we just go along with this magical spell. So Animal Farm, great book. Anyways, continuing with this pyramid. So from all animals are free and have rights, and then, oh, well, some animals have rights and some don't, and then we're going to say some animals categorically have no rights, and then we're going to go to all non-human animals have no rights, and then we're going to go to all non-human animals are our property, and then we're going to go to some human animals have no rights, and then further to some human animals are property. And that's where you get enslavement that's been affecting us for thousands of years. That's that top one. And this correlates with the other picture of self. When you're at that self, that Satanism of self, or Satanism of self and family, when that's all that matters is preservation of you and yours, well, that's where you're at. You're at the some human animals are property. Some human animals have no rights. Depends how far down the fucking shithole you've gone. Anyways, take some time, look at those two correlations, and you can see as you get more truth, you get more an understanding of rights that beings have, and you connect with all animal species. And the less you have of a connection and alignment and embodiment of truth, well, the more degenerate and devolved you are, and the more an identification of self only you are, or your immediate ones. And that leads you to removing rights from other beings, from other non-human animals, or from other human animals, and even going to treat them as property. So we'll move on to image 7. Image 7 is graphs, and they are based on the foundational core blocks infographic, and it's a transition point between that understanding and the pyramid description that I'm going to be getting into in the next few images. So as I spoke about the zero line, and negative knowledge is below 0 and positive knowledge is above 0, well, this is what the graph on the left side is representing. The structure is built on or above 0 or below 0 in negative knowledge. So these are conceptual knowledge blocks about particular aspects of reality. So in the blue, as you can see on the left for the graph, the blue is positive knowledge. It's true, it's accurate, correct, and right. So, and below that is the red, the negative knowledge, which is what is false, inaccurate, incorrect, or wrong. And that going up and down in the negative and positive, that's the amount of quality knowledge. So if you have low quality knowledge, if it's meaningless knowledge and it's not negative, it's positive in a sense, but it's going to be low in the quality. It's not going to be very high. It's bullshit. Who fucking cares? So the blue is also above 0 is knowledge accepted that is built upon a solid quality foundation. So that's those blue blocks. And the red blocks is below 0 is information accepted that is built upon a faulty, unsolid foundation that falls into and is constructed in negative knowledge, lies, deceptions, etc. And the horizontal bar is actions, constructs, subjects, categories, and concepts corresponding on various levels. So that's the columns, the blocks. Those are our actions. Well, anyways, that's it. It's our actions, constructs, subjects, everything that's built upon either truth or falsity. So the image below, I just put it into the gray block so you'd understand how to tie it into the foundational core block infographic from image 4. If you look at image 4, you'll see, it's red, blue, and gray. So I just made it red, blue, and gray so that people who can't follow along and see how it correlates, well, you have red, blue, and gray, and then you can just look above, and I've just colored the gray into a more blue or a more red for more distinction. Anyways, should be pretty evident. On the right is another graph depiction. This one I call level of truth and foundational integrity. So it's the alignment of actions with core foundational principles of truth. So at the bottom you have untruth, negative knowledge. At the top you have truth, positive knowledge. And you see on the horizontal direction we have from weaker to stronger. It's the strength of constructs. They go from weaker to stronger, the strength of our constructs. And it's the strength, solidity, groundedness, integrity of actions, concepts, etc. in truth. So the first block, the first column, it's got a lot of red, only a little bit of blue. It's got a lot of negative knowledge and only a bit of positive knowledge. So that's weak as compared to the other ones. You see how they get bigger? That's because of the strength of your constructs, the foundational integrity. The amount of truth you have is directly proportional to the strength and integrity of your foundation. They're both related. So the strength of your foundation is proportionally related to how much truth you have. So when you want to get stronger foundational construct, you need more truth in your life and less untruth, less negative knowledge. So just explaining what I've explained already, image 5 and the foundational core block principles of truth, the red and the blue and the gray. This is just another way of looking at it. The more truth you have, the stronger your construct is. The stronger your foundation is, the stronger your secondary level constructs are. Truth is the supreme importance in the universe. There's nothing more important than truth. Love comes after. That's why it's truth, love, freedom. If you have love first, and all you get is obsessed with this love, this idea of love, and then you become these idiotic light warriors, these rainbow warriors, these unicorn warriors, all this bullshit, and they're just trapped in delusional fantasies of believing whatever they want and telling themselves lies to maintain a feel-good sense of self-image or worldview and their position in it. True love comes with truth, embodying truth, and becoming truth. That's why truth level 2, once you really grasp this, truth is love. That's the whole point of my site. And truth unites. Truth is love. Truth is good. Good is love. Love is good. Love is right. Right is love. Right is good. Right is true. It's all the same thing. Natural law is all that. Morality is all that. So truth level 2 is what's most important for everybody. in order for us to create a real reality of true freedom and peace. So the graph underneath that blue-red bar one, this one I put it in gray, just again to help in the correlation for those who have trouble correlating all this information together. I put it in gray just to depict these gray bars are the secondary level manifestation. I put A, B, C, D, represents columns 1, 2, 3, 4, wherever you want to look in your foundational construct. These are the secondary level constructs that you build upon. These are your actions, constructs, subjects, categories, and concepts corresponding on various levels. And the more your actions and constructs are based in truth, the more strength, solid, grounded, and integrity of actions are in truth. So you want to reach truth. That's where the next slides are going with the pyramid and reaching truth. You want to reach truth? Well, you got to embody it. You got to go for it. You got to seek it. You got to discover it. And that's when you build a strong life, a quality life, a right life, and the wisdom of right action. Image number 8 is the first of 3 images which I'm going to be talking about the concept of reaching for truth. Now this is tied into the symbolism, the Bible ladder infographic, which I called Truth, Natural Law, Heaven and Hell, Bible symbolism. It has to do with climbing the ladder. If you go look at that image in the images on the Facebook page or on the site, type in heaven and hell, you'll find it. I'll read one of the quotes from that infographic from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 7, verse 13. And this is why I'm talking about reaching for truth and how this is directly related to the foundational core blocks. And after you understand these images, you can go back to the previous image, image 7, and you can see how the graph correlates to it, and how the tree correlates to it, and how the house correlates, and it's all talking about the same thing. It's just using different pictures, different perspectives to look at the same thing and get higher definition, clarity, and greater detail of understanding this issue that is super important. Enter by the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the way that leads to destruction, and there are many who go by it. Because narrow is the gate and difficult is the way which leads to life, and there are few who find it. Now if you want a bigger explanation on this quote, life, what's life? Life is real life. Life is getting to creating what is right and good and true and love and morality and natural law. Anyways, it's more explained in the Bible, heaven and hell symbolism infographic. Go take a look at it if you're confused before continuing. Put the audio on pause, whatever. So here in this pyramid, we're going to be describing it this way with the wide gate at the bottom, since we're looking at a triangle. So it's wider at the bottom and narrow at the top. So symbolically, at the top is the narrow gate, at the bottom is the wide gate. At the top is the narrow gate, which is difficult. At the bottom is the wide gate, which is easy and comfortable and convenient and everything. So the wide gate, when you progress towards the narrow gate and you're working from the narrow gate and you're trying to find truth and it's difficult and it takes effort and hardship and tribulations, that's more time, more energy, attention, effort, dedication, and persistence. The more you dedicate your time, energy, attention, effort, and persistence to that narrow gate of truth, of acquiring and walking in that straight and narrow path, well, that's representative of truth, and you're going to create a better, more harmonious life, a more integrated and connected life. That's when you get to the narrow gate, that's truth discovered, accepted, aligned, and embodied. That's when you become aspects of truth, love, good, right, natural law, morality. And at the bottom, the wide gate, well, that's the least you become of that. That's when you're still into a lot of bullshit. That's why it ties into foundational core blocks. Hopefully you can see this in your mind. Anyways, for me it all makes sense. I've written down as many ways as I can envision the foundational aspect for the importance of truth, and I'm trying to describe it in as many ways as I can. And below that is, instead of blue and red, again, I put the gray blocks to help in disambiguation and those who are confused and going from different colors. Just remember, blue, higher frequency, red, lower frequency, gray is what we build upon, what we create and manifest in reality based upon what we take in and where we're at in our levels of consciousness. Either we're at the narrow gate or we're at the wide gate of ease and comfort and convenience and sensory pleasures and gratification and enjoyment and amusement and all this bullshit that keeps us trapped. So the last image, the last infographic on this image 8, is integrity, coherence, consistency, congruence, unity and harmony with truth accepted, embraced, and held in ourselves will produce the wisdom of right action. This is when we become, embody, and live the truth, love, good, right morality as fully as we can in our lives. So again, I'm using the pyramid. The graphic represents the foundational core blocks mixed with the above pyramid red and blue that I'm describing. So they're the core blocks, but it goes up in a pyramid. So at the wide gate you have more bullshit, more lies, more deceptions, more illusions. And as you go up to the narrow gate, well, there's the most truth. And then everything you build on a certain level of understanding. When you're building at the bottom level, well, your construct is low. It's a small little construct. You can't build very big because you're limited in what you understand. And as you go up, you're going to be building bigger and better, which goes back to the first image on the house. To build bigger and better, you need a more integrated and solid quality foundation. So each of these levels represents that. And you'll notice that it's different from image 6, where I had at the top self and at the bottom all animal species, and I had at the top the least rights and at the bottom the most rights. This is a different representation. The top here represents the narrow gate, the bottom represents the wide gate. We're not talking about a wider, solid foundation. We're changing our interpretation of images. So don't get confused when I'm using a pyramid structure and I'm saying the top is one thing here and then the other one I'm saying the top is another thing, and they seem to contradict. It's because you're not putting your frame of mind into the right modality of understanding what I'm trying to describe. So you have to change your way of perceiving it. Okay, I'm describing it very accurately, but you have to perceive it properly to understand it. And I'll be even mixing the two in the next image or the one after. Yeah, the one after the next image. I'm going to be mixing top and bottom, and you'll get a clearer understanding of this. So the last thing on this image is I have a quote from Will Tuttle. It has to do with living integrated and consistent lives, and has everything to do with the animal issue. And until everyone on the planet recognizes this higher level of morality, everyone who does not live this way will be continuing to perpetuate wrong action and live an unintegrated, inconsistent, incoherent, oppositional, contradictory, conflicting, disunited, and disharmonious way of life. Will Tuttle says, when we understand the consequences of our actions, the violence required to obtain animal foods from both factory farms and family farms, and also the bigger picture in terms of the environmental, social, and psycho-spiritual ramifications of participating in the consensus food trance, we find our temptations and cravings quickly dissolve. With greater understanding, they never arise again to begin with. When we understand our true nature and that of non-human animals, there is no inner battle, and our life is congruent with our values. That last sentence says it all. When we understand our true nature and that of non-human animals, then there is no inner battle, and our life is congruent with our values. This is everything that I'm talking about. The natural law chart, the heaven and hell ladder, everything that I talk about, the animal issue, it's everything to do with living an integrated, coherent, consistent, congruent, united, harmonious, internal nature and external manifestation in reality with everyone else. Because we're actually living, being, embodying those values of truth, love, good, right, morality, and natural law we like to tell ourselves and pretend that we live by, but we don't actually live by it. And that's all these frauds, all these liars, pretenders and posers, all these fakers and phonies who pretend and tell themselves and tell other people about how evolved they are, how in alignment with natural law they are, how much they understand natural law, yet they're in complete denial of the animal issue, and that just demonstrates how their actions contradict their words and how they are in internal contradiction themselves. They are non-integrated, they are non-congruent, they are non-consistent, and they are non-coherent. Image 9, reach for truth. Another one. This one I described it in steps, which you can really see with the Bible symbolism and the ladder. It's levels, grades, degrees, awakenings, births as we climb up. It's also relating to the other picture with the narrow gate at the top. You see the narrow gate? It's wide at the bottom, it's narrow at the top. See how it relates to steps in the Bible, the ladder symbolism, if you checked out that infographic. The amount of time, effort, energy, dedication, determination, and persistence to work our way up to higher levels. That's why the narrow gate's at the top, because it requires effort. You got to climb the levels. You got to go through grades and degrees and levels and awakenings and births. There's different awakenings, there's different rebirths in our journeys. It takes effort. It doesn't just happen. You got to climb. At the top is where the fruits are. So at the top is narrow. It's less bullshit and more truth. At the bottom is wide. It's more bullshit and less truth. So the next graphics on the next image 10, which I'll be talking about. Right now we're on image 9. The next graphics will use two triangles to represent different aspects. Upright triangle has truth at the top, and the upside down has strength at the bottom. Upright truth. The upright triangle has truth at the top, and the upside down has strength at the top. You'll see. Anyways, so below this is the inverse of the pyramid and steps visualization that were based on the foundational blocks graphic. So I'm just showing you. You're going to invert a triangle, and at the bottom, it's weak. It's red, it's small, it's weak. At the top, it's big and strong and integrated, and it's more truth. So if we take the images, the pyramid image from image 6, and we invert it, you can understand where I'm going with this. So if we invert it, instead of at the bottom of the foundation of that pyramid, where no one has authority to harm other beings, now we're putting it at the top, just to visualize how this correlates to the pyramid I just drew, where the strong foundation is at the top and the weak foundation is at the bottom. At the top is the strong constructs to live by, the strong foundation, and at the bottom is the weak constructs to live by, the weak foundation. So you can put that beside the steps just above, and even though the steps are a triangle and they're going in one way, this represents at the top more truth and at the bottom less truth. But when you invert the triangle, what you get at the top is stronger foundation based in truth, and at the bottom you get a weaker foundation based in truth. So image number 10. Reach for truth part 3. Reaching truth is proportional to the foundational strength, which I mentioned in the previous images on the graphs. So when you have the upright triangle, which I briefly mentioned, you have the most truth. It's the narrow gate. It's the straight and narrow path. That's that term. Walking the straight and narrow path. That's the path of truth. It's the least bullshit. At the bottom, you have the least truth. It's a wider gate. It's a winding broad path. It goes in left and right. That's why it relates to pendulum. The pendulum swinging and gradualism. It's a broad path. It goes from left to right. You're going every which way. You don't know where you're going because you're not on the straight and narrow path of truth. You're still going from bullshit to bullshit. You don't know where you're going. So to the right, you invert it. So you're not going to put the red at the top and the blue at the bottom. We're keeping the blue at the top to represent the strong foundation. So if you go back to the previous steps or pyramids built, well, you see at the blue at the bottom, and you can envision red at the top, where it's the most bullshit. But we've just inverted it to show that the blue is strong, represented by the stronger amount of blue, the more blue that there is. And then at the bottom is weak foundation. It's a core wrong. At the top is core truths attained. Now when you have the most truth at the tip of the pyramid, well, what you actually have is a strong foundation. So I couldn't use two upright triangles to represent that. You'd have blue at one top and blue at the bottom in the other one. Because I'm getting at the unification of the two triangles and the Seal of Solomon. It's another symbol. That's why I made it this way. So the path to truth is narrow, strict. It has tribulations, hardships, not a winding path from left to right, swinging like a pendulum from side to side, not sure where to go or what to do, engaging in actions haphazardly, half-cocked, partial implementations, focusing on effects, events, and not the core root. So combined, you can see that as you climb the pyramid of knowledge, and that's the one outlined in black, and then it goes into white as the other triangle merges with the blue. So you see that white and black outline. So you start at the bottom with the most bullshit and lies, and then you climb to the top to the most truth. And conversely, at the bottom with the most bullshit and lies, it's your weakest foundation. That's represented by the triangle in orange, with the orange outline. So you got bullshit and lies in one triangle, and you can climb up to the truth. And in the other triangle, well, it's weak. It's strong. It's weak. It's feeble. There's not much there. But as you climb up in truth, you increase the strength of your foundation. You see how it's strong. Now we're not talking about it's the wide gate. We're not talking about that symbolism anymore. I need to make clear people don't get confused on the symbolism and say, well, before the previous image, you were talking about the wide gate, and here it's wide, and now you're saying it's good. No, I'm talking about different images, different ways of looking at it. Use the right perspective. See things as they are. Don't mix up the symbolism and everything and apply it blindly across scales because you think correspondence applies everywhere and in every way, and you're just going to apply it blindly. No, it doesn't apply blindly. You need to know what the hell you're doing to apply correspondence and apply it correctly. So, you start at bullshit in the wide gate, and you climb up to the narrow gate of truth. And as you do that, you go from a weak foundation to a strong foundation. So now I've merged them even more, rather than having the two blue tips at the one place and the red tip. So I'm doing it in a progression wise because I think if I move too quickly, people won't understand the changes in images. If I just went from the two triangles above to the star to the Seal of Solomon, I think people might get confused. So that's why I put that intermediate one to explain how they're both connected on the same level. The weak peak of the inverted triangle matches up with the bullshit of the wide gate. And the strong base foundation matches up with the narrow gate of truth. Now when we put it into the Seal of Solomon, what we have is the weak foundational point at the bottom, which is the lies, the wide, broad, easy gate. And then as you go up, you get to the strong foundational point, which is the opposite of the weak foundational point. And then you can get to the truth, the narrow gate. Image 11. The tree of causality. Slavery or freedom, our choice. Leaves and branches are the manifested effects, symptoms, problems, results, output, etc. Focusing here has no power for real lasting effective change. The change has already taken effect. It's already been affected. You can't change it. It's done. This is the plane of effects. This is what I had an epiphany, an insight when I was doing my foundation thing, and I was like, oh yeah, well Marx cause and effect, it directly relates to this foundational understanding that I'm trying to get people to understand, and it just uses different colors. You know, previously in earlier in this audio, I forget which image it was, but I was describing how, you know, what we manifest. I think it was on image 5 about the foundational core blocks. What we manifest, those secondary layers, that's the effects. And where does it come from? It comes from the causes, the internal nature, the core foundational roots. So here the roots are the causal factors, the core foundational axioms for living our life. The manifestation, essence, emanation, and generative source. The power to really change for the better and make it last. So this has everything to do with gradualism, because everyone in gradualism is too busy focusing on altering the effects, remedying and providing alleviations to the symptoms that we manifest in the external, and no one is targeting the internal plane of causality. No one is targeting their internal nature and changing themselves internally in order to produce lasting effects. People want to implement the thrive. People want to implement transition movement, zeitgeist, the reset. That's the one in Britain that says the reset movement. Now people are always latching onto movements. They don't want to do the internal work. They don't want to really get down to the root causal factors. They just want a quick fix, and they want to become a part of a group. And I don't know, I see it as just a lot of fear of individual personal responsibility and not doing things the right way. It's half-cocked, haphazard. It's just not going to work. I'm trying to explain it, what I understand intuitively. And I did it in the rant on gradualism, and I'm doing it more here in these infographics. And anyways, hopefully people will really get it. So hacking away at the top, recent human manifestation will only chop the leaves. The root causal factor for this predatory mind virus to exist and perpetuate itself stems from the root of the tree from where it originally comes. The root has not been dealt with, so no matter how much you chop leaves and branches off, the root of evil, that is slavery, will continue to pop back up, grow back, time after time. Until we deal with the root causal factors of engaging in this behavior in life at all, we will not get to produce true freedom and peace that will last. If you target behavior and actions that only reflect upon human animals, you will be leaving the predatory mind virus of master-slave exploitation, enslavement, harm, violence, or murder justification. We have to go all the way and walk the path fully. This is to have a solid quality, foundational understanding in order to create the wisdom of right action and get effective results by changing the core causal factors. An effective method to keep people from going to the depth of high definition clarity on root causal factors that need to be dealt with is by having them focus on immediate matters or relative degrees of needs in our human-only reality that we have created for ourselves to live in. There are many secondary layer constructs that have us directing time, energy, attention, effort, thought, and action towards what we have only always been targeting, the effects and symptoms, not the root causal factor that lies at the foundation for the behavior to manifest. Consciousness, psyche, mind is where we need to change, heal, and rebuild the foundation to understand and create better in our shared first level reality. That's that first level of truth. And I'd forgotten about this quote, but I found it. I was looking through my notes on stuff, and I found the quote from Henry David Thoreau. There are 1,000 hacking at the branches of evil to one who is striking at the root. So I view all of these movements, all these things are partial implementation, partial changes, not going all the way, not helping other people develop consciousness to the degree enough in order for us to effectively create true lasting freedom and peace. All these people, they're just striking at the leaves, at the branches, focusing on the symptoms, on the problems, on the effects, on the results. They're not looking at where those results come from. They're not looking at the how and why. They're not looking at the root causal factors. They're not looking at the foundations that need to be healed and corrected, purified, etc. All the alchemical process. They're not looking at that. Image number 12, I call it, it's another part of the tree of causality. This time it's in human form. So the red part, what we create, what we manifest, actions, what we end up creating, what we become, how we live, the actions we take, the plane of effects. And the bottom, the green part, is the root causal factors, the generative source, the foundational principles, the causal plane. It's where we need to change to produce a different reality, to produce those different results, to produce the different human, to change what we become. So this is just another way of looking at it. Instead of trees and houses and blocks and graphs and pyramids, well, here's a human depiction and the roots upon which we base our lives and create our lives. So this one should be really self-explanatory and hopefully connect a lot of dots in case you were unable to make the correlations previously. Image 13. This one is, it's just text. So basically, why does this foundation material matter? What is the point? What are you getting at, Chris? And I've added, how do we truly unite? Because that's a big part of this foundational understanding. With gradualism, there's also the way to truly unite, which so much of the internet is filled with bullshit on half-cocked, partial unity based on, as long as we have ABC aligned together, we can unite and we can build a better world. Wrong. It will not happen. Just like gradualism, you're going from partial implementations, half-cocked, half measures. If you're okay, here. Anyways, I'm going to explain it in the next few images, but it's just ridiculous, this false unity people want to embrace based on this false understanding of love, because they do not value truth enough in their lives to understand the interconnectedness, the patterns, the correspondences, and the correlation between things, and they just want to believe all you need is love. No. First comes truth, then comes real love. Go read my Truth is Love article if you still don't understand that. It's really long, super long, and the audio I did was the first one I did, and I was talking a lot slower. So, it's 3 hours and 40 minutes. So go read it in sections if you want. There's like 7 sections. Read a half hour a day, whatever. Anyways, I totally explain how truth is love and love is truth in that article. So, what's this foundational material? What's the point? What are you getting at? I've pretty much already explained this before in the previous images, but this was to segue into unity and what true unity is. How do we truly unite? So that's why I put this here. I recognize that people, even those who claim to know logic, the trivium, and natural law, do not really understand how to use these tools. I am laying a framework or groundwork to explain how to come to base actions and behaviors on truth. I can demonstrate my comprehension of these tools through my actions of behaviors, speech, and words to describe how well I understand them. Some previous frameworks that I have explained for helping to understand the value of truth are the dualistic conceptual framework, truth is love, judgments, the natural law trivium and consciousness chart, and the truth, natural law, heaven and hell, Bible symbolism infographic. The point of all this audio that I'm doing right here, and the other things that I've tried to explain, is to understand that when you have a core foundational principle of truth and a construct you are conceiving of or choose to act upon, etc., is in violation and contradicts the principal core value of truth, then that construct, or whatever you're choosing to act upon, is false, wrong, and will not lead to true good, freedom, and peace. Truth unites, lies divide. Living by core foundational root causal principles of truth will lead to right action. When you question your life, your choices, your decisions to be made, your actions, your behavior, others' behaviors, etc., you always go as far down as you can to root causal factors and see if the way of living, actions, etc., are in alignment and harmony with that core principle of truth, or if they are in contradiction and opposition to them. That's the whole point of everything I'm making. This is what you need to understand. Is anything anyone does, anything anyone says, if it's in contradiction with the core principle foundation of truth, a root causal factor, then that manifestation is wrong. That's all you need to know is foundations to live your life. And you can build everything from that. And when you see someone building something that's in contradiction to the foundation of truth, then you know they're building bullshit and they're building wrong action. Because you understand the foundation. Even if you can't see the wrong action is wrong right away, you know it's wrong because of the foundation that it's violating. So how can we expect, and then I was, in that third paragraph, how can anyone expect to truly and effectively unite with others when they are not yet united enough within themselves in their own consciousness, nor united enough with truth? So how can anyone possibly expect to unite and truly create freedom and peace when the people you're uniting with, they're not even integrated and consistent enough with truth in themselves to create right action, and you're going to try to create a future with them? That's not going to work. Those people aren't even united in their thoughts, emotions, and actions, and they're not even united in truth, and you think you're going to actually create a prosperous future with them? No. They need to be elevated, educated, raised, and graduated in consciousness before you can create that better world together. I'll be getting into this unity aspect in the next few images. So, what's the foundation? How does it work? Ask a question. If you have a core foundational principle obtained, then you can answer correctly. Is democracy valid? No. Once you have core foundational principles of truth obtained, you can answer no, it's not valid. You can answer why. And until you do have that knowledge, well, you're going to keep believing, oh yeah, democracy is valid, democracy is great, democracy is the best thing the world's ever seen, blah, 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 blah. All this other bullshit. Because you don't have foundational principles obtained. So then when someone talks about how democracy is valid, already you know they're in internal opposition because they have conflicting perceptions of reality which are false, and that puts them into a bullshit internal modality, and they're creating bullshit externally. Is democracy valid? Yes. Well, obviously you're not integrated and consistent with very deep foundational principles of truth, or else you wouldn't say that it was valid. So since you do say it's valid, that automatically describes yourself through your own actions, through your own words, as being disintegrated, disunited, non-harmonized, non-congruent, etc., with what is truth, love, good, right, morality, natural law, etc. So, is democracy valid? No. It is control and obedience of 49% to a 50% want and desire, not based on right versus wrong, truth versus lies, but on whims, comfort, gain, pleasure. Anything that violates core foundational truths is being constructed on cracked, poor, flawed, faulty foundation that will not last ever. Time will reciprocate its ultimate demise through a compound reaction and consequence of building more and more on the cracked foundation until the house of cards falls. Something constructed from a flawed premise and foundation is set on a path of self-destruction. From its inception, it is already doomed. That's the way it works. That's the way the whole system is made. It's made on flawed premises, faulty foundation, and from the moment of its inception, it was doomed to fail, and the only reason it hasn't failed is because we're so attached to our current existing modality of living that we just keep patching up symptoms, we keep applying graduation. So meanwhile we're being taken gradually in a negative direction, we think we can effectively apply graduation in a positive direction, but it's taking one step forward, two steps back, one step forward, two steps back. It's just teeter-totter, left, right, pendulum swinging. We're not going anywhere. That's why things don't improve. That's why we're not learning. That's why the shit is going to break and fall apart, disintegrate, dissolve, because it was created that way through its construction in flawed premises and faulty foundations. It's inevitable. You can delay it as long as you want to remain attached to it and perpetuating wrongdoings and evils and patches and half measures and all this bullshit. You can keep it going for a while. Keep the bubble going, keep the bubble going. Eventually it pops. Because it's built on crap. So eventually the whole house of cards crumbles under the weight of the bullshit, and it just collapses. That's the times we're heading in. So, back to image 13. All you need are core foundations to walk the way on the right path. Is eating animal flesh valid? No. Again, people who say yes, unintegrated, inconsistent, incoherent, incongruent, non-united, contradictory, conflicting, oppositional, all that stuff. They don't understand truth, and they're in confusion internally, and they think they understand, but they don't, because they're missing truth, and they're building their life. They're building their lives in negative knowledge. So is eating animal flesh valid? No. It is a violation of natural law. I don't need any of man's science to validate natural law morality. Man's science will eventually catch up to the universal cosmic spiritual moral law that we live by to determine what is right, good, and true. Man's science will eventually unilaterally confirm that plants are much better for us per the design of our bodies. If you understand something from a core foundational principle of truth, it is the basis for what is right, good, and true. Actions or concepts that diverge from the quality integrated foundation are built on falsity instead of truth. Violating rights is wrong. You can ask, what plants do I eat? Well, man's science may be able to guide man in the best foods to eat, but natural law can inform you that you are not to engage in murder, violence, enslavement, or exploitation of other innocent beings. This is known to the core of those who have more awakened their heart center, care, compassion, empathy, conscience, and morality to this degree of embodiment and being the change that needs to happen, being the change they want to see, being the change that needs to be. So you just ask questions, What plants do I eat? Well, natural law can't really tell you that. It can tell you what not to eat. You have no right to eat animal flesh. It's not a right you have. It's an imagined justification to create a wrong into a right. People don't want to accept that. They want to believe as long as they meditate and they can see lizards in other dimensions or whatever other bullshit, then hey, they're super evolved and they're fucking moral and that's all they need to do. They don't need to learn more. They don't need to face themselves in the shadow fully. They're super evolved. They do all the shadow work. Oh yeah, they're kings of shadow work. That's Bernard Guenther. Oh yeah, they understand everything. They talk with the shamans and they do ayahuasca and oh yeah, they're so evolved. They've done so much shadow work, yet they can't even face the animal issue in honesty. That's when you know people are bullshit liars. They just lie to themselves over and over and over every day of every hour just so they can substantiate and maintain their delusional belief systems and ways of living in life that create evil. So image number 14 is a more detailed explanation which I will skip. So there's a bunch of writing in here. It just gives more of an explanation from image 5. More detail. This is the image I had created from a month ago. And I put it in. I think I modified it a bit, but I put it in just as information. And you can read that on your own. Well, actually, I'll just read the bottom part. The big paragraphs, because they have the gusto of the information. Okay, won't take too long. We ask questions in life on what to do, how to behave, what actions to engage in, and contrarily, what not to do. Right action produces right results. Wrong action produces wrong results. Our world is a reflection of the manifestations of action and behavior each of the individual units of consciousness choose to generate. All of our actions to live in the world collect into an aggregate critical mass of behavioral mechanisms and ways of living. What we accept as true, right, and good ways of conducting ourselves with respect to the other components in reality, universe, and existence is what determines the world and secondary reality that we actively generate by our behaviors and choices in life. It's all based on the core aspects of information and knowledge you have taken in that is represented by the different colored blocks that make up the foundational basis for living life. We build other understandings upon these core principal blocks that form our foundation for living. These can be accurate, correct, right, good, and true pieces of data to build your data set or data pool, the blue blocks. They can also be inaccurate, incorrect, wrong, bad, and false aspects of understanding taken as truth, the red squares. They are bought into as valid methods of behaving in and thinking about reality, our world, and our self-image or concept of ourself that we have constructed so far by living amongst the variability, multiplicity, and diversity in this universe, reality, and existence. So again, you look at the blue box, go back to image number 2, that's the blue water, and the red blocks are the red water, the red poison, and that's the tree and the foundation and the fruits and everything. Anyways, you can correlate and understand visual representations and how they interlink there. So the last paragraph from this image, if we have a faulty foundational basis for living our lives, then we will not be creating a world we want to live in through our choices, actions, and behaviors. We will have accepted and bought into false axioms of belief. These erroneous beliefs are based on lies, deceptions, and delusions. We continue to create results that are not in alignment, harmony, unity, integration, and cohesion with what is right, good, and true, with universal, cosmic, spiritual, natural, moral law. The quality of the information and knowledge we intake will output as a method of living in the world in degrees, grades, and levels of alignment and embodiment with optimal core foundational principles of truth based in natural moral law. What we input is what we output, and what we output is what we get back as an aggregate qualitative, What we input is what we output, and what we output is what we get back as an aggregate qualitative effect of everyone combined. Cause and effect. Reaping what is sowed. This is how it works on the mass scale. Each individuated unit is a part of the whole that is created. As each unit changes, the more units share core foundational principles in common, the greater the potential for the overall condition of the world to be based on those solid, accurate, correct, right, good, and true foundations. The greater each unit aligns with core foundational principles of natural moral law, the greater the potential unity and strength of relationships to be built. A commonality in understanding important truths and values to live by will build that type of future. Those that perpetuate and participate in direct violations of natural moral law are participating in creating more wrongdoings in the world. And hopefully that's a hint about the unity aspect, how unity works and how unity doesn't work when you try to unite with people who aren't fully integrated and evolved and elevated and raised and graduated in truth as you are. Well, you're going to have to compromise yourself in order to create at their level, and you're going to be perpetuating the creation of evil as per their modality of living, and you're going to be supporting that. That's why there's a difference between true unity and false unity. Image 15. Foundational pyramid construction examples 2. I'll call it examples 2 because examples 1 was image 6 or 7 there. So the first one is justification for evil, slavery, murder, etc. The predatory mind virus. Death dealing, which is what I call our way of living. We are death dealers, merchants of death, and this comes from the predator mind virus. So at the core, what's the core like? Well, we're not understanding or living natural law fully enough. We have lies, illusions, and falsity built into our foundational ways of living. So at the bottom, we accept the master-slave relationship. We legitimize slavery. What that produces, and the next level manifestation, is living in a society of control and violation of other beings. That's slavery and murder of animals and consummation of death as being justified. Well, nothing wrong with it. It's all right. It's right action. Oh yeah, I lie to myself. I love being full of shit. Like, that's what people do when they tell themselves these things. And then from there, well, then we degenerate even further, as my previous pyramids have shown. Then we degenerate into slavery and murder of other human animals as justified. And then we can degenerate even further into, oh, we'll murder for pleasure. Now we're just going to kill and murder because it's fun. Not even because we have this belief that we need to eat it. We're just going to kill because it's fun. And that's what the fucking psychopaths do. That's what you end up with so many people in police and military. They're crazy like this. This is what many of the people in power are like. Murder for pleasure. Let's rape and kill children. It's a total degenerate, devolved frame of mind. And they have us believing, they interject this predator mind virus in our ways of living through the societal construct, through the structure of civilization and the systems we live in. And this is how it works. It's how we go from the self to the tribe to the community, and then the nation, and all of the species, and then we eventually get to other species. Well, this is the reverse. We've degenerated and we're accepting slavery. We're removing rights from beings and we're removing rights from humans, and then we're eventually just enjoying it all because we're so degenerated in consciousness. Eventually, weight of lies and evil wrongdoings will collapse the house of cards built on flawed and faulty foundational basis of corrupted understanding. Even if only one core foundational principle is based in wrong and evil, it's still one thing that will lead to manifesting a wrong way of life and continue to perpetuate more suffering. Okay, so think about unity. Very important. You don't work at the top, the leaves, to affect a real lasting solution. You get to the roots, the core foundation, to affect real change. So, people want to eliminate, we got to deal with the human suffering first and remove all of that. And then we'll be able to get rid of slavery. No. You're not going to get rid of slavery, and it's going to keep creeping back up. You're not going to clean, because you're not cleaning the cracks. You're not cleaning the blocks. You're not repairing it. And it's going to keep coming back. So, we're going to justify slavery of animals because they're not humans. And then we're just going to keep getting more slavery of humans because we're going to keep putting out slavery, and we're going to keep getting slavery. You get what you put out. Input, output. What's input gets output, and what's output eventually comes back for input. my last image, which is pretty awesome, I have to say, image number 24 or 23, that will deal with that aspect. So the next pictograph on this image 15 is another one we can look at, another example of how we can apply this foundational understanding for dealing with root causal factors rather than symptoms and effects, and think like we're getting somewhere by doing all this gradualism and all this graduation of, oh, well, we're going to remove something here and we'll fix A, B, and C, but we'll leave X, Y, and Z into corruption. So here's the justification for money. So the first one is you accept money is, quote, needed to survive. You can't get anything without it. So that's just the concept of money. And then you go from there up. Oh, well, gold is, quote, good to use. It's a precious metal with belief in some value from our imagination. And then we go further from there. Well, gold, or sticks, or cacao, or rocks, or whatever. No. Paper money is, quote, good to use. It's backed by belief in the value of nations' labor and production. So yeah, it's worth something. It's backed by the nation. Even though all that shit's manipulated anyways. And then you can degenerate it even further from your belief that money is needed and go into different forms. Now you're going, oh yeah, well, digital virtual mind currency is, quote, good to use. It's backed by the belief in fantasy virtual mining. It's intangible and it's infinite. How great is that? See, the people who don't understand Bitcoin think that Bitcoin is so great because they don't have foundational core principles of truth ascertained, accepted, and embodied within themselves to understand why this is a flawed gradualism in the wrong direction. So is money okay to use? We shouldn't use it, but since we live in a society that requires us to for our survival, then we should not be going further in the negative direction, and instead be responsible enough to use money that is representative of something real. So like money, the value of labor, well, that's the illusion they tell us anyways. At least that was better than a digital virtual mind currency that people mine on their computers that comes out of fucking nowhere. That's a real delusion. That's real psychosis. Not even by the promise in the belief of labor, of goods and services rendered or resources that back the value of a currency. No. This is a virtual currency that's mined on a computer, and it's totally controlled through the binary system of computing, and it's infinite. There's no limitation to the amount of, if we're going to compare it to paper money or gold, it's backed by the value of the nation, which is represented by the gross domestic product or the labor, and well, it doesn't have a limit. There's a limit to labor, but digital virtual mind currency doesn't have a limit. It's infinite. It's infinite. There's no value to that. There's no limitation. There's no value. Bitcoin was started not based on anything real. It was virtually mined. It is the wrong direction. Last paragraph on image 15. Do you want to waste your time, attention, and energy to support more illusions, such as Bitcoin? Or you want to target the core foundational axioms that have us building our lives believing in need for money to live? We can keep living with money, or we can actually target the roots and get rid of this need, this belief in the need for money. So one is dealing with the effect symptom and trying to modify it to suit us better. Anyways, in their minds and people's imagination, they think it's going to suit us better, but it will not. The other is dealing with the cause and trying to remove it from our lives so that we can truly live better lives devoid of this attachment to get us things we want and desire. So instead of targeting the root, You target the leaves of one color and try to create leaves of another color. You're going from gold to paper, or paper to digital currency. You're just changing the color of leaves. And you're using the same corrupted root. You should be changing leaves to another kind, a different tree with different roots, not different colored leaves of the same kind. So there's foundational principles of truth understood with relation to justification for money and this ridiculous fraud of Bitcoin that so many people in the truther movement are falling for. I don't understand how they're falling for this. Well, actually, I do understand, because they don't have foundational principles of truth embodied within them in order to understand how this is a complete fraud. Image number 16 is the second part of actually image number 1, but I've made it into, it deals more with unity, so I've put it over into the second half of these images. So this deals with the common foundational basis for cooperative living. Cooperative living. That's uniting with other people to create a world together. That's what cooperative living is. It's building a connected life with others. It's creating at the same level of consciousness. It's how truth unites and lies divide. So maybe before I even get into it, maybe you even understand it now, that until we're on the same level of consciousness, until we're connected and integrated on the same level, we're not going to be able to truly unite, because only truth unites. And if someone else is uniting and attached to lies, deceptions, and illusions, well, when they align with us, they're going to be bringing us down. We're going to try to bring them up, but they're going to be bringing us down because they don't want to let go. And then, we don't want to be alone, so we're going to unite with anyone with the hope that we'll be able to make a difference, and we're going to create this. We're going to create a life together, even though we're incongruent, we're inconsistent with our core foundational principles between each other. It's not going to work. This is schizophrenia. It's non-integration. It's just madness what we're trying to do in society. All these people who live lives of compromising truth. They compromise truth, they sacrifice truth, and oh yeah, you gotta make compromise, you gotta sacrifice. Yeah, in order to survive we do, unfortunately. But when you're trying to build a better life, because you understand core foundational principles of truth, when you unite with someone else and they understand less and they're still creating evil, and you're not, well, they're going to take you down. Either you bring them up, where they're no longer at that level, and then you are really united. But if you're uniting with someone who's not coming up to your level, and they don't want to, and they want to keep doing their wrong action, like all the people who don't want to look into the animal issue honestly, and they don't want to be vegan, they don't want to take it seriously, they don't understand how this is the root causal core foundational axiom that's creating all of our suffering. This is where all of our violent actions come from. They don't want to understand that. Well, you're not going to be able to build a life with them. While you're trying to create good, they're going to be busy creating more evil, more murder, more enslavement, more harm, more violence against other animals, and it's going to keep perpetuating the fucking slave-master relationship. You cannot create a future of true freedom and peace with those people. It just can't happen. You can try and try and try, and that's what we've been trying for so long, centuries and millennia. It doesn't work because we're not targeting the root causal factors. We're going after the leaves. We're like, oh, well, you agree with this leaf needs to be another color, and I agree that this leaf. So let's unite. Let's try to create a better life together while we're only targeting the symptoms and trying to apply band-aids on things that we have in common that we want to change in common. Well, those little bases of commonality aren't enough. And you want to unite with a murderer because they understand a bunch of other things about how to create a good life, but they don't respect human life, so they could murder you at any minute. Yeah, that's the type of person you want to live with. Well, it's similar when you're a vegan and non-vegans. You want to create a life with them? You want to go into the future and try to create a harmonious existence and true freedom and peace? Well, it's not going to happen. You're trying to create that true freedom and peace. Meanwhile, they're still creating the evil. It's not going to work. The root causal factors need to be targeted, and people need to be elevated and raised in consciousness in order to bring everyone on the common level, the same level. So either you bring them up and create together from that higher position, or you unite and bring yourself down to create at their level. False unity does not work. Everyone needs to be raised up to the proper level. Then we can actually create the world we want to see, a world of true freedom and peace. So I'm going to read this page. That was just my rant. Common ground works if it's core foundational ground, natural law in its proper alignment. If you try to align on falsity, it will not last. One person tries to create a better world, while the other is still part of creating the wrong in the current one. The two cannot coexist in an integrated manner. Trying to build a house with material A that is better, while the other people in your life don't want to understand and continue to build with material B, will produce a non-integrated house built upon compromised foundational principles that weaken its solidity. The foundational base needs to be unified on core principles of truth, right, good, morality, natural law, etc., in order for us to truly create a condition based in solid quality foundational unity. And that's, I forgot to describe the picture, just a brief interjection. So you have the big construct, this mansion. Two people are building a life together. It's a bigger life they're building. It's together, and they're coming from a core foundation. So you have person A, person 1, and person 2. So when person 1 is trying to, they still got problems. Everyone's working on stuff overall in their lives, So person 1, well, they're able to hold up that house to a certain degree, but because they're connected to person 2, well, oh my God, the weight is too much for person 2, and the construct of life is going to be faulty. It's going to shift. It's going to be cracked. It's going to be tilted. It's not going to be good. And then as a result, the person 1 who didn't have as many cracks, well, now they're supporting the rest of the weight of the good life they're trying to create. They're trying to create a good life, but they chose to unite with person 2 who's creating evil. So meanwhile, they're trying to create good, the other person's trying to create evil, and that's corrupting their foundation. Person 1's foundation is being corrupted, and now they're losing ground, they're losing solidity, they're losing integrity, and they're getting bullshit and lies into their lives because they chose to unite with person 2 who is creating bullshit in their lives. If you unite with someone, your lives are going to be connected. We're all connected on this planet. We all have collective co-created suffering and self-inflicted shit. But when you take it down to the small level, this is how it's represented. Person 1, person 2. Person 1 gets more corrupted by aligning with person 2 because they've chosen to unite and integrate with that person rather than unite and integrate with truth. And if they have to, well, they'll go at it alone until they meet other people who are ready to align and embody truth to their level of being so that they can actually build a better and stronger house and a bigger house. It's actually built on solid foundations, and it won't crumble away, and it won't teeter-totter, and it won't fall over, and it won't fall down, because they're actually going to be basing their lives from truth. So anyways, I think I explained that little image enough. Person 1 is going down to person 2's level if they choose to unite with person 2 as they are. You're going to try to create a life with person 2 when you're person 1? Well, get ready for your life to degenerate. Get ready for you to make compromises and sacrifices in order to falsely unite on falsity, deceptions, lies, illusions, and bullshit that person 2 is still attached to and won't let go of. Continue reading. Two people are uniting to build a life together or share a life together in some ways and build a common way forward. If one person is being and living in alignment with greater truth and reality themselves and embodies truth, love, good, right, etc. to greater degrees, then they will understand more about the right direction to take to create true freedom and peace. Person 1 understands more of the core foundational root causal principles of truth to live and walk in the way. Person 2 still has false foundational axioms upon which they are basing their life, their choices, actions, and behavior. The degree of rightness and goodness to be created based in truth is not the same. Person 1 will be able to create real freedom and peace more so than person 2. In this union, in this relationship, friendship, etc., they cannot produce the same results since they are not at the same level. While person 1 will be trying to create at a higher level, they will be held back by person 2 because they cannot create at the higher level together since person 2 is still at a lower level of creating wrong actions. Person 1 will try to create more good, but they will be held back by the, quote, unity in uncommon ground. Other people's beliefs and false axiomatic foundational ways of living affect other people who are ready to live beyond the lies, deceptions, manipulations, illusions, and bullshit of control, enslavement, etc. This is why blind, quote, unity does not work. Anyone who speaks truth that others are not aligned, united, or harmonized with will cause those others to point the finger at the messenger speaking the truth and label them as a, quote, divider. Someone dares to show and explain to others how they are engaging in wrongdoings and evil acts in violation of natural law morality, and the people who cannot accept and embrace the truth of their current condition and participation in such evil prefer to reject and deny it and claim that those who speak truth are the dividers. The real dividers are those people who cannot let go of attachment to false beliefs used as a basis for their sense of self, their ego, personality, identity constructs. Attachment to lies, deceptions, illusions, and bullshit will always create division. It's not up to those who speak truth to be silent in order to falsely unite on a flawed foundational basis. It's up to those who are attached to lies to dissolve, shatter, destroy, disintegrate their calcified ego identification with the bullshit and let it go, to embrace truth and care for truth. They're the ones that need to change in order to unite. The people who are already at a higher level, they need to help the other people get to a higher level. But you're not going to unite effectively with them when they're at a lower level and you're at a higher level trying to create good and they're still creating evil. It's just not going to work. It's just mathematics. It's not going to work. They need to be elevated first, then you can unite. Because you're at the common level, you're on the same common ground, you're both at the same floor. That's the common ground. Common ground isn't, well, I'm picking subject A, C, and L. I'm picking those. We're united on these three. Well, there's our common ground unity. No, that's not common ground unity. Common ground unity is being on the same floor. So if people are both believing in bullshit and they're both rapists, well, they're at floor -10 or whatever, and they're united on their raping people or murdering people because that's what they both share in common as a value. So they're going to be united on falsity, on bullshit, and on deceptions, and that's going to be a strong bond for them because they both agree on it. Now, when you get higher up, and you get people who actually understand truth and value and good and rightness and morality and natural law, well, when you unite on different levels, it's not going to work because you're concerned about doing what is right, good, and true, and the other people are still doing wrong. It's not going to work. You need to be on the same level. You need to both be on level 1. You need to both be on level 3. You need to both be on level 10 of manifestation, you know? You need to both be at the same level in order to create the same things in reality. If you're on different levels and the other person's creating wrong and you're trying to create good, well, it's not going to work. You're going to be brought down to that level. You're going to be prevented from creating what you truly want to create because you chose to unite with people who are creating at a lower level than you. So, second to last paragraph. This happens on topics from speaking about money, government, education, and especially the mass psychosis of the animal exploitation, enslavement, harm, violence, and murder issue. if you are trying to live a life free from harm, slavery, violence, or murder of innocent sentient animate beings that experience life similarly to us, and a person in your life you are trying to move forward and create true freedom and peace with does not care about these beings nor ultimately care for truth, then you will not truly be united and harmonized at a core foundational level to truly create a better future. The other person will be holding your overall progress back because in your choice to unite with them, you have begun to build and construct a way of living, being, choosing, acting, and behaving, represented by the house above, that is based upon your joined foundational basis for living. You are partners in some form, sharing life, and if the other person is not living up to higher standards of morality, that creates an inherent divide. How would you like to live and create a life with someone who rapes other people? Maybe a pedophile. Maybe a repeat violator in the theft of property, sexuality, and life of other humans. Would you just simply unite on some weak common ground and forget about the evil they are creating? This is what happens when we gain greater aspects of truth and embody them. We raise ourselves, evolve our consciousness, and other people keep dragging us down because they will not create the world we are trying to create. The foundation is weaker on one side that produces wrong action, and the stronger side has to overcompensate to create more good through right action. This disharmony in living truly united This harmony in living truly united in what is good, right, and true creates schizophrenic ways of living, a psychosis. You will be trying to create real good, freedom, and peace, but it will never happen because that manifested result is an aggregate of everyone combined. Building a future with them, creating wrong and evil through violation of rights, will not produce the future you want, and you will have to, quote, deal with them continually creating wrong action in your life since you chose to share and, quote, unite with them. That pretty well explained how unity works and its relation to integration and the foundations of truth. Image 17 is another text description which goes more about unity, because this is really important, this unity part. There's so much bullshit about, oh, you're creating problems, why don't we just unite on stuff that's more important? I hear this all the time from people who don't want to accept truth, and most of all regarding the animal issue. They just want you to shut the hell up, and just target the government issue, the money issue, or whatever. And let's just forget about the enslavement and harm and murder and violence against innocent sentient beings that have every right to life that you do. Yeah, let's just put that aside. Let's just unite on the few little bits that we have in common. Well, that's not good enough for me. I don't know about everyone else, but that is not good enough for me. I will not unite with people who do not understand this, because what this ultimately describes is my one true divide, which is care for truth, which I've described in my Truth is Love article. If you care for truth, but you can't embody it yet, and at least you can accept it as the truth, alright, you're on your way. At least you have that first level care for truth. You haven't gone up in the levels of care, but at least you're there. Those people who don't even care for truth are the ones who reject the animal issue. They spit in the truth's face. They're not interested in truth. They don't have a care for truth, not a real care for truth. They're too busy rejecting and denying it, coming up with excuses and justifications to validate their current modality and their current self-perceptual, feel-good inner state of believing whatever they want about themselves and how good they are. Anyways, I lost my train of thought, so I'll go back to reading. But just unity works when you're on the same level. When people are on another level and they're creating wrong and they don't want to let go of it, well, they're not in care for truth, and It's demonstrated. When people reject truth, they don't care for truth. I've been ignorant of truth, and when I come across it, I do not reject it. I do not deny it. The animal issue, never denied it. Took me some time to change, but I had the initial level of care for truth to accept it, and then eventually I had to develop more care, more heart center, more conscience, more morality, more compassion, and more empathy to really kick myself in the ass and do something about it, rather than just know it internally that, well, it's wrong and I accept that truth. Well, you got to do something about it. To know and not to do is not to know. Wang Yangming, Chinese philosopher. So this one, image 17, is conscious awareness and unity through integrated solid foundations. We create through what we are aware of. If we lack certain aspects of truth about reality, then we cannot possibly construct that which we cannot even imagine and does not yet exist. To create something new, first it must be thought of in the creative power of the mind. Most people go to school, get a degree for a job, work, find a mate, procreate, pay off house, cars, vacations, etc. They create the same patterns that have already been created by previous generations. They create from the patterns given to them by others. This includes all of society and the various forms or media we intake that has us accepting certain information that we associate with in constructing our sense of self, our ego personality identity construct, and our worldview in general. People don't understand how things can be different and why they do need to become different, and the right kind of difference for what is truly best, and certainly not using more coercive external control with more and more man-made laws. Lack of conscious awareness brings few changes for the better, while more conscious awareness allows us to live more integrated lives with truth, right, good, love, etc. People are more united in the big lies than in the particular core foundational principles of truth. True unity comes with a solid core foundation. When you speak a truth, people do not want to hear or accept. They view you as the divider because you dare to speak a depth of truth they do not want to face. To speak truth in its clarity and definition is not to divide, but to unite in true unity with truth as the foundational core of our lives. Right now, many people are uniting with the common core of lies and falsity. So they agree and unite from limited perspectives that still have flawed foundational constructs. Uniting in the common large foundational lie is easier to bond through than recognizing the truth. Destroying the lies and rebuilding yourself in alignment with truth to truly unite with those already there, already at that level. It's easier to unite on bigger lies because they require little effort, as they are generally already accepted ways of living. Effort comes with change and is not welcome for many. To continue the simplicity of what is already conditioned or accepting something easier is more preferred than changing to something that requires more work and more integrity and personal responsibility. Hitler said, make the lie big, make it simple, keep saying it, and eventually they will believe it. Look at the world around you. People accept lies and reject truth because the lies have been propagated for so long and they're so big and they're so ingrained as foundational axioms in their lives that they cannot learn to see them for what they are and let go. And therefore they can't accept truth because they're still attached to the lies, bullshit, illusions, and falsity and deceptions. I was united in a project with someone. We were both united on a common positive goal, to create permaculture or whatever new way of living. But also we had the big existing lie to substantiate a unity from, the common sickness, the human sickness of the predatory mind virus of slavery and murder. Once someone breaks out of that spell, and others do not in your life, there is no longer the false unity based on commonality of lies and deceptions. You used to be united on the lies and deceptions, but one person breaks out of it, you're no longer accepting that. The connections of unity have been broken up. Now you're united on less of what's important, and you're more divided on what's more important. So the more important things take precedence over the less important things. And what's more important is slavery and murder, as opposed to creating a permaculture way of living or something else. Slavery and murder is much more important than trying to do permaculture somewhere. A hell of a lot more important. So when you're divided from that important basis, from that important foundational basis, that's going to create more division and less unity. Even if you're united on those other things, because those other things are less important and less, just less important. So I'll continue reading. Once you wake up to the harsh truth and others choose to remain asleep and continue to partake in evil, then you have a choice to make. Either live in corruption of your principles by creating a way of life with those people that will have you creating evil as well, or you can remove yourself from them and create with others who are as awake as you, so that you can live in true integrity and wholeness of the values you want to create with and be surrounded with. You're going to unite with someone and not be integrated on the core foundational principles, and they're going to create evil while you're trying to create good? Well, you're going to be in opposition inside. It's going to create conflict in your life, that you have to deal with that bullshit and that you let it go by, and that you're creating with someone to create more of that wrong. You need to separate yourself from that shit. Imagine if everyone stopped engaging with people in their lives who they knew were doing wrong. Then we'd have people on the right side in varying degrees, and then people on the wrong side, and maybe the people on the wrong side would be like, well, maybe I should look into that more. Maybe I should change. Maybe I should unite more with truth. Maybe I should integrate more with truth. Maybe I should understand the value of truth and its supreme importance in life, rather than believe in whatever I want to substantiate and maintain my fantasy delusional validations for imaginary rights that are not rights but are actually evil and wrongdoings. If we were ostracizing people for engaging in wrongs, I bet you they'd stop engaging in those wrongs pretty damn quick. But we're not doing that yet. We still want to try to falsely unite on these few little common ground points, but it's not even common ground, as I've explained, because you're on different levels and it's just not going to work. But people just want to unite. Oh, love and all this false love and light and fluffy puff. Smoke up your arse. Rainbow, glitter, sparkle, magic, pot of gold, and rosy colored glasses. It's just a bunch of bullshit. People aren't going down to the core, root, foundational, causal factors enough to understand how this unity works. And I'm explaining it here. Second to last paragraph, image 17. Spending time and energy implementing various gradual changes, while time and energy doesn't go towards elevating our own consciousness or helping others do the same, is spending time and energy on control and man's law to implement these changes, because people are not evolving consciousness. Gradual changes don't work efficiently or last unless people are changed themselves to understand the need for external changes to happen, and then they make it happen of their own free will. Gradualism, thinking you will achieve good and create freedom and peace from a corrupted foundation, is a delusion. It is fooling yourself because you don't have the conscious awareness of how corrupted your foundation still is. We need to keep living in our collective shit until we choose to learn from our mistakes and go all the way towards the truth, and not being complacent or satisfied with compromise, sacrifice, half measures, half steps, left and right juggling, pendulum swinging, etc. The resolution of symptoms and suppressive measures will not eradicate the mind virus of disconnection that is the predator mindset. Until we get down to the core, we will only have temporary respite, false wins, instant gratification of external appearances having change, proxy and substitute victories that will have us let down our guard and become comfortable having this little, quote, win. Image 18, titled Authority Master Slave. This is construction of pyramid, structure using authority in a master-slave relationship. So at the top on the left one, we have smaller, weaker, worse structures as we degenerate further, losing integrity and quality. We've already talked about this. So, you have death dealing. Then you have enslaving humans. And then you reduce that less, and then you have enslaving non-human animals, and you're not enslaving humans anymore. And then you reduce that less, and it comes down to the foundation of accepting the master-slave relationships. You take it the other way, Okay, into your core being, you accept into yourself the acceptance of the master-slave relationship. What does that lead to? It leads to enslaving non-human animals. And then it degrades further into enslaving human animals. And then it degrades further into just death dealing. Then you become a death dealer. You murder, murder, murder. Kill, kill, kill. It's similar to the other one, the other image on the predator mind virus. 2 images back or 3 images back. On the right side, you have a larger, stronger, better structure that maintains integrity and quality. It's not enslaving any being. All sentient animate beings are free to operate according to their own nature and rights to life. And at the core of that living, you're not accepting the master-slave relationship. You're accepting rights and freedoms. This is how it works. You're accepting that animals have rights and freedoms. They're not your property. So you're not accepting the master-slave relationship. And all sentient animate beings are free to operate according to their own nature and rights to life. You're not enslaving anything. You're doing the least harm you can. You're not doing harm to other animals. There you go. You've evolved consciousness. You're embodying more of the heart center, care, compassion, empathy, conscience, morality. So the text is, and it relates back to the, from 2 images ago with the house and person A and person B. So if person A is trying to create from the foundation on the right, and person B is still creating from the flawed foundation on the left, then they cannot harmoniously so I'm saying here, person A and person B, person 1 and 2 from the previous images, well now person A is on the right creating good, and person B is on the left here in the red and the cracks. Just to make that clear so you don't get confused. If person A is trying to create from the foundation on the right and person B is still creating from the flawed foundation on the left, then they cannot harmoniously unite to build a world of peace and freedom. Trying to do so is called compromise and sacrifice of truth. Then the 2 foundations unite from the common foundation, that of the corruption of accepting slave relationships. Person A used to be heading in the right direction, but now they have sacrificed the truth and integrity of their foundations to now live in a way that is united with person B. The structures they build into the future will be based on the common foundational basis. Person A will coerce themselves to allow wrongdoings to occur in their presence in order to conform to the unity, quote, unity and, quote, keep the peace that is based on the flawed foundational common ground. Does the anarchist ally with the statist? Do those against pedophilia unite to build a new world and compromise to what the pedophiles want? Do those against murder ally with continuous murderers and let them do what they want? There are certain points of action from others that we cannot tolerate when we are at a higher level, and we cannot simply, quote, unite with them based on, quote, common ground. The foundation is corrupted and needs repair before a mutual unity can be achieved. Anyone who excuses, justifies, and validates their current condition and behavior of participating in exploitation, enslavement, harm, violence, or murder of innocent sentient animate beings that did them no harm is living from a place of calcified negative ego attachment to darkness, lies, deceptions, illusions, bullshit, and evil. It has become a part of their identity, their sense of self, their self-image, and worldview, and they will defend the wrongs as though they are, quote, rights. They see themselves as, quote, a good person, therefore all of their actions are, quote, good. Otherwise, if they would have to admit that many of their actions are wrong and create harm, then they would have to face the truth about what that makes them a part of and what that makes them as a person that they choose to be. Moral relativism is preferred, and they begin to use many fallacious validations to substantiate and maintain their delusional violent living. Denial of the animal issue indicates a continued attachment to a barrier of self-realization, a barrier to evolve consciousness. That's the truth right there. Denial of the animal issue indicates a continued attachment to a barrier of self-realization, a barrier to evolve consciousness. You can't go higher if you don't get past this issue. You can't. You're going to tell me that someone who validates the animal exploitation, enslavement, harm, violence, and murder is someone who has a developed heart center? Is someone who has developed care? Is someone who has developed compassion and empathy? Is someone who has a developed conscience and morality? No, they don't. Therefore, their consciousness is not as evolved as they would like to believe and make others believe. They can use whatever words, whatever lies to themselves and others, whatever fantasy delusional beliefs they want, and believe that they're so evolved, but they are not. And their words, their actions betray their words. It's simple as that. So the last one, just a basic pyramid. Just another thing about this, just believe whatever you want to validate anything. So at the bottom, you accept, well, there's no objective reality. All is subjective, all is illusion. Real reality is not visible to us. That's like, the physical world, that's not real. The only real world is the quantum world, is the energy. Oh yeah, the source, that's the only real reality. The fourth or fifth dimension or the 11th dimension, that's the only real reality. This reality is not real. It all comes from there. That's the source. We got to focus our energy on these other realms, and if we can't see the other realms, then we're not evolved consciously in consciousness, and if we're not dealing with the other realms, if we're not living in the other realms, then we're not evolved in consciousness. No, actually, if you're trying to live and escape into those other realms where you aren't, you're here now. If you're trying to always go there, you're right brain imbalanced. You're seeking something that isn't for you to have. You're in the third dimension, okay? You're not in other dimensions. You're not another entity somewhere else. Get with the program. You're here. Engage this reality. Stop lying to yourself and lying to others to have them believe that, to have an evolved consciousness, I gotta meditate every day. To have an evolved consciousness, I gotta be able to see into other dimensions, and I gotta constantly focus my time and energy in other dimensions. Wrong, wrong, wrong. You're escaping reality. You're in complete escapism. You're in complete right brain imbalance. That's why you meditate all the time. That's why you're obsessed with this bullshit. You're not dealing with reality. You're not engaging in right action. You're not changing yourself. You're not facing your shadow. You're still engaging in the animal enslavement, exploitation, violence, harm, and murder. Because you're not evolving your consciousness. You're running away to another plane of existence, and you think that's evolving your consciousness? It's not. Get real, get grounded, and do the fucking real work on the ground that needs to be done. Stop floating in the clouds, dipshits. So anyways, when you accept that, real reality is not visible, it's not here, this reality is an illusion, blah, 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 blah. Well, then you accept, there's no death. Everything here is part of the real reality that's underneath this illusion. And nothing dies in that reality. It's all energy. So when we die, it's all energy anyways. Nothing really dies. Nothing happens. So then the next structure we build is nothing matters. We can do what we want. Everything dies. I die. This dies. That dies. It all dies. So what does it matter? We can do whatever we want. If we murder something, it doesn't matter. It's just changing states. It's going from matter to energy. No energy is lost. The law of the universe. Einstein equals MC squared. No energy is lost. It just transforms. It's okay. We can murder anything. We can do any wrongs we want. It doesn't matter. This reality is not real. Blah, 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 bullshit. Fantasy land. That type of thinking drives me bonkers. It's just insane how people can validate their choices with just fantasy beliefs in whatever they want to substantiate their feel-good inner state. So in the end, harm is done because this reality is not real anyways, and it's just all a game. So la-di-da-di-da. The next image, there's just more questions to ask yourself, you know. Do you understand these things? Does truth unite or divide? How important is truth in your life? How important is aligning with truth? How important is speaking truth? How important is calling out bullshit and lies? How important is going along to get along? How important is not sacrificing truth? How important is not compromising truth in order to, quote, unite with falsity? Does standing for truth matter less than getting along? Does serving truth matter less than keeping friends? Do you understand that standing in truth is standing in real love, capital L? Do you understand that right and wrong exist? Do you understand the value of aligning with right? Do you understand that right action creates a right world? Do you understand? Do you want to align perceptions with reality of what is right, good, and true? Do you want to spend time, attention, energy, and effort in developing yourself towards greater integrity? Do you have the determination, dedication, and persistence to embark on the spiritual journey towards greater attainment of truth and begin the great work? These questions drive your foundational living, what you strive for to acquire and create. If the above values are important, but you don't fully live them, then you are not living your true self. There's more questions. Why do you believe you need to do what you currently do? Are you sure you need to keep doing this and it must continue? Do you know why you do the things you do? Do you know the origin and behavior of the behavior you engage in? Do you just accept the learned conditioning and take it into yourself as part of your identity? Can you examine yourself honestly to see what corruption you currently have in your foundation? No. We need to ask ourselves questions. We need to keep examining ourselves. Self-reflection, self-examination. Socrates, a life of something about a self-examined life is one worth living, and something about people who don't live a self-examined life isn't really worth living, something like that. Anyways, so at the bottom, core foundations of truth. Truth is supreme. Living a moral life is important. Non-violence, doing the least harm possible. That's good foundation there. Those are three really important things. Now on the right, you have the opposite. Someone who, oh, well, there's no truth. Truth's not important. There is no right and wrong. Living a moral life is not important. And, no, reducing harm. I don't care to reduce harm done. Doesn't matter to me, whatever. I'll just justify whatever I do is right. So is it too hard to see how those two foundations are not compatible? One person works from causal understanding. The other person wings it and justifies and validates their way of life on the whim of their feelings, sensations, desires, wants, and beliefs. Wrong action will not be corrected because they do not care nor admit to the wrong or a need for its correction. And that's why this example here, really basic, is why false unity does not work. I've explained it several times in different pictures. Hopefully it's understood now. I've tried my hardest to really get this information out of my being for others to understand. Image 20, pillars of support. Basing an aspect of your, it's just another way of looking at it. I drew it as a table, and then like an arrow pointing up, or it could be a house you put on a table, whatever. The arrow represents the structures that you're building forward with. So building an aspect of your life built upon faulty foundational axioms. I can participate in enslavement. I can participate in murder. I am engaging in wrong as a result of being fooled. That's your life you're living. Why? Because you have a few pillars of truth understood. You have certain foundational core principles of truth in you. But they're starting to crack up because the weight is becoming unbearable. Those core foundations are getting corrupted too because you already accept negative knowledge and you've already built in negative knowledge. You've built in, well, people who eat meat are healthy. So meat's no problem there. Oh, and then plants. Well, plants though. Plants feelings, plants this or that, whatever bullshit. Another flawed foundational axiom. Oh, another one. My free right to choose. It's my choice. You can't tell me not to choose. You're trying to control me. Another flawed foundation. Another one is, oh, well, I have to listen to my body. My body needs it. All these fucking bullshit things. So people want to hold on to their few pivotal foundational points, while the other side that they refuse to accept and embrace has many more foundational points holding up the conclusion. That's the picture below. You got people, carnists, who believe in all this bullshit and they don't want to reconstruct their way of living, get rid of all these lies, because they got the few foundations. They got 4 foundations that they're so sure of, and they won't let go of them. Therefore, everything they build above it, the arrow can keep going and keep creating more enslavement and more murder. For them, it doesn't matter. They got their 4 pivotal foundational points to hold on to, and they're not letting go. So most of the corresponding particulars and premises are outright false and are negative knowledge, the red pillars. Or they are corresponded with false information that is part of a truth they do not recognize and accept. And this false correspondence creates confusion and provides an anchor upon which to base the supporting construct upon. So something might be true, like B12. Apparently we can't get that naturally. Even though some other animals get it naturally, we've devolved from that state. Something happened, I don't know what, but we can't get it. So we got to get it through other animals that can get it, and murder them and take their work that they put into the world and create their lives, and we got to steal their life and their work and their property. Or we can, at this position in our development, since we have longer lives apparently, when our lives were more short, it seems that you can live without B12 supplementation for a long time. Then it starts to deteriorate and degenerate your condition. So we would die younger. And now with our technology, we can create B12 without harming animals and live healthy. So why would we need to harm animals when we can do it without harming them? So in the past, maybe we believed, we need B12. People didn't even know about B12. B12 is an inconsequential argument in the end to validate using past experience, because B12 wasn't even known. They didn't even know about this shit. They would just eat to live. And people were eating to live and thriving on just a plant-based diet, and they've been doing it for hundreds and thousands of years. Go look at the history of true vegetarianism, and you'll see. It's been going on for a long time. So, the blue one, when your position is upheld by a solid quality core foundation based on principles of truth, you are founded upon what is right. So in this position, the person understands core foundational principles of truth, so the way they live their life is they understand the nonviolent principle deeply. I do the least harm possible. I don't engage in murder or slavery. I stop engaging in wrongs because I am no longer being fooled. That's what it comes down to. People who do wrongs is because they are wrong, they are not right, and they are being fooled, they are being tricked, they are being conned, they are being manipulated. That's how they got to the position they are in, and they don't want to admit that they are wrong. They don't want to change, so they're going to keep perpetuating the same bullshit and the same evil again and again because they don't want to face themselves honestly. So going back to image number 2 with the data pool and data set, if you look at the block with the pillars underneath, if you look at it from the top view, well, the next little picture, well, that's what it has. It's a data pool or data set. Excuse me. The data pool or data set, accepted information that makes up your foundation, view from top as foundational pillars or view as pieces of data. You can view them as individual pieces of data, or you can view them as the pillars from above. Conclusions drawn from false premises will not be accurate. The garbage and poison of negative knowledge needs to be cleaned. Red is other than the side of truth. It's a side of falsity and is accepted because it supports a way of life, usually one relating to a pleasure, desire, gratification, ease, comfort, convenience, etc. Red is oppositional to foundational core principles of truth, despite being used as a proxy. Building with red pillars will lead to wrong action in the immediate or long term. Image number 21, this is just spiritual alchemy, rebuilding ourselves in alignment with truth. Raising, graduating, awakening, rebirthing. This is the process. It involves deconstruction and reconstruction. That's how we go up in levels. Us, internally, not externally. Internally. That's where graduation happens. Many will remain attached to their negative knowledge foundational axioms for living. When truth is brought forth that contradicts the weak foundation, it can shatter the foundations upon which people build their lives around, their constructs in life, and their ego personality identity construct itself. This truth is often rejected because of the fragmentary effect it has upon their self-concept. The truth is viewed as an attack upon themselves, upon their very identity. We can face the truth in all its beauty and horror, to recognize the current condition, accept it, and face the darkness, demon, shadow, and negative in the world and in ourselves. Seeing reality as it is will provide the opportunity to choose another way. We can develop the courage and willpower to actualize another potential through healing, transmutation, sublimation, purification, change, betterment, improvement, and evolution of our inner selves. We can become more integrated and better versions of ourselves that live by the values of truth we deep down really want to. That's integration. That's consistency. Non-oppositional, non-contradictory, non-conflicting. We must let go of attachment to illusions used as a basis for our identity and living. Each of us needs to take the time, energy, effort, dedication, persistence, and determination to really step onto the spiritual journey and path towards greater embodiment of truth, to be a part of the great work. Applying this to society is not desirable for most people due to their deep levels of attachment to the current constructs. Getting rid of all of our co-created problems will require the deconstruction of society. So here's my infographic of how spiritual alchemy works, tied with the first image I provided. You got your house on faulty foundation, construct with faulty foundation. That's your constructs, identity, worldview, actions, concepts, behavior, ways of living, all that. What you got to do? Part 2. Destroy the structure to redo the foundation. So you destroy the structure. You get rid of your belief in the need for your way of living. Next, you destroyed that. Well, what do you got? Now you got your foundation. You got to clean your foundation. So you get rid of all the negative knowledge. Then you got to re-solidify and integrate your foundation with quality information. Quality. That's principles of truth, love, good, right, morality, natural law, etc. Then you rebuild your foundation. Then you can build your structure again. You can rebuild new structures and constructs for living that are actually going to be built on a solid quality core foundational root causal factors. And then we're going to get true freedom and peace. So, cleaning up our cracks takes time. It's a lot of internal work. It doesn't happen all at once. I just drew it this way to represent it. But each time we got to shatter our illusions, shatter our identity, shatter our belief in the necessity for our actions, and the necessity for concepts to exist, for the constructs in our life to exist. We got to get rid of them, look at our core foundation, clean it up, reintegrate it, and rebuild. And every time we see there's something wrong with our foundation, well, we got to set aside our constructs, destroy it, clean the foundation, and rebuild from there. Image number 22. So we're getting to the end. Image number 22 is a new graphic I made using the concept of ahimsa, which is the Sanskrit word for non-violence, doing no harm. It's a negation, apophatic. It's saying what not to do. Don't do harm. It's an aspect of the sacred feminine. The sacred feminine is do no harm. So, on top of people who advocate the animal exploitation, enslavement, violence, harm, and murder, not only are they not integrated and consistent with themselves, they're divided in themselves. They don't have a heart center or care or conscience or morality or compassion or empathy developed. They're not integrated and consistent with truth. So there's those three aspects. They're divided from within, they're divided from truth, and they're undeveloped in the heart center care and all that. Not only do they have these three aspects, they are not aligned with the sacred feminine. So it's really looking bad for those people who are involved, who participate, who support, who pay for people to murder animals or pay people to provide them with exploitative property from another being. Eggs, milk, cheese, all animal flesh, all of it. It's all wrong. It's all evil. So, embody the sacred feminine, do no harm, non-violence, stop the evil, and say no. Use the lost word, say no, stop participating in evil. So that's a no to exploitation, enslavement, harm, violence, and murder. It's really, 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 really simple once you understand it. But until you do, all you want to do is reject it when you don't have a care for truth. I never rejected things to the level I see people rejecting things about the animal issue. And that just demonstrates their lack of care for truth. So not only are they divided from within, divided from truth, non-integrated from truth, they don't have developed heart center and care. They're not embodying the sacred feminine. Damn, what was that last thing I was talking about? Well, I had a thought that corresponded with those four things, but I don't remember it when I was describing those four things that popped out of my mind. So anyways, truth is love, care for truth, integrate with truth, love, good, right, morality, live integrated, consistent, coherent, and connected, make the connection, go vegan. That's what everything I'm trying to do is all about. It's all about the animal issue, because I understand that it's the core foundational root causal factor for all of our problems. A lot of people don't. But this image number 22, it encapsulates everything. Embody the sacred feminine, non-violence, do no harm, stop, say no, use the lost word, stop participating in evil, no more exploitation, enslavement, harm, violence, and murder. Okay, you got to make the connection, you got to become more connected with truth, you got to live connected with truth, you got to live connected to other life, you got to associate and identify with those animals, those non-human animals. And the solution is to go vegan. Vegan is the future. That's the way it is. There's no getting around it. People who don't want to accept that are just in huge levels of denial. Just immense levels of denial. Image number 23 is the pretty awesome picture I made. It started off with thinking of cause and effect from Passio. Then I thought of inductive and deductive logic. I joined that in, and then the cause and effect from the tree I made previously, and then the tree corresponded to inductive and deductive logic from the causal realm and the effects realm. And then from there, I added the expressions of consciousness, of thoughts and emotions, because those are internal and they're subjective. They're in the causal realm, and the actions are what we produce. They're the effects. So there's an integration of the cause and effect of the leaves and the roots of the foundations. There's an integration of deductive and inductive logic. It's an integration of the three manifestations of consciousness, the Trinity, and it's an integration of the trivium. So this is the latest infographic that I made, which condenses a lot of things together as a comparative chart, just like my natural law, trivium, and levels of consciousness chart. This one does similar, and if you look at the two together, you'll see even more connections, and you'll make even more. The pattern recognition will develop. You'll evolve consciousness if you don't already understand it. If you put those two images together, and you look at the correspondences and how they relate, you're going to understand some more shit about the universe and how to live life correctly. So I call it causality, consciousness, trivium, and logic tree symbolism. So in the red, you have the effects. That's what we manifest through our actions. Causes, thoughts and emotions. That's what we create with. In the roots, that's the core foundational basis for living our lives. So I'm just going to go with the descriptions, and then I'll go from the out and I'll go to the in. So the leaves and branches are the manifested effects, symptoms, problems, results, output, etc. Focusing here has no power for real, lasting, effective change. The change has already taken effect. This is the plane of effects. The roots are the causal factors, the core foundational axioms for living our life. The manifestation, essence, emanation, and generative source. The power to really change for the better and make it last is the plane of causality. I'll go to the right side. If you look at the plane of effects, these are actions, effects, events, constructs, structures, conceptions, ways of living, stimulus, response. Already you can see how this represents to the secondary level structure, what I colored in gray normally in the original image 5 with the foundational blocks. This would be gray. The gray structure, the secondary level structures that we construct from our foundational cores. So here this is red, and the foundational core, instead of being blue and green, blue and red, it's represented as green because it's the generative force. It's what we create with. It's what we generate with. And the other foundational blocks, well, either we generate with good, with a higher frequency of blue, or we generate with bad, the lower frequency of red. Here we're using colors differently. Here we're using red to represent action and green to represent generation. So again, do not get confused by the colors. Learn to decode the colors for the appropriate perceptual representation that we're trying to get at. And the plane of effects is also the visible realm, the physical, seen, matter, objective, particulars, measurable. And the plane of causality, these are axioms, the core foundation, the root causal factors. And go back to the foundational core blocks. That's what it represents here. This is also the hidden realm, quote, spiritual, unseen, of the mind, subjective, deals with universals, and it's formless. So if we start at number 1, so you see there's 3, I've color-coded them into 3 different aspects. You have the yellow, the black, and the white. The yellow and the black are aspects of the trivium. The white is the Trinity consciousness. And inside the circle, the black is a selection of the trivium, which is just logic. So deductive and inductive logic. So if we start at where 1 is, what has been output is available for input. Effects and events affect us. So that comes from previous actions and manifestations in the world. So that's a stimulus. The stimulus is an input. Grammar and knowledge is that input. It's a who, what, where, when that manifests. Then that proceeds from the plane of effects. When it's input, it gets input internally into the plane of causality. The plane of causality is our thoughts. The thoughts are internal and seen, hence spiritual. The subjective, universal, formless, the hidden realm is the realm of causality. From thought, we get a greater capacity for thought allows us to process and understand our environment and events better. So that leads to thinking. So first you have stimulus, then you have thinking, then the third one is response. So from stimulus is input, the grammar knowledge, which is who, what, where, when. They go through our thoughts. Our thoughts process the greater capacity for thoughts, creativity, imagination, analysis, logic, all that, everything, balanced brain. We understand our environment and events better. That's why people with balanced brain, they can face the truth about the animal issue. They aren't busy creating excuses and justifications to perpetuate and maintain and substantiate their evil wrongdoings in the world and murder and exploitation. Because they have a balanced brain, they can actually see truth when it's presented to them. They care for truth. People who don't have a balanced brain reject truth, either left or right brain imbalance. So from thinking, you get to logic, because logic is about understanding and processing. It's understanding it's why manifestation occurs. Previously, the stimulus and input was who, what, where, when that has manifested. Now we're in the internal realm, the realm of causality. Now we're in thoughts, logic, understanding, and processing. It's why manifestation occurs. And logic brings the internal subjective realm into alignment with the objective rhythm of reality to produce harmonious external manifestations. From there, we get to our emotions, another aspect of the internal unseen, the plane of causality. Because when we unite our thoughts and our emotions integrated together, that's where we develop our care, the generative force. So from the internal realm of causality, we generate into the realm, the plane of effects. So we get up right behind response. Right before we create a response, we have care to manifest. We have care to create a manifestation. Care to create a manifestation will drive us in certain directions and ways of living. This goes back to the previous one, image number 3, or a tree of mind and heart. We're saying, higher frequency, generate true care, create what is good, good fruits. And you have corrupted care, dark care, which is from the lower frequency, and that will generate bad results, wrong action. So it depends on what we're doing. So we got to be careful about what's input and how we process it, whether we recognize it as truth or falsity. Because then what we're going to output is based on what we care to output. And that's all based from the internal realm, the generative realm of the thoughts and the emotions uniting together. So from our care, we generate a response. The response is the rhetoric, the wisdom, or the output. It's what we put out from our processing, from our input. And that is our actions. It's external, it's seen. It's from the visible physical realm. And compared to the who, what, where, when that has manifested, and then we try to understand the who, what, where, when that has manifested and understand why. Now we're at the process of how manifestation occurs. It's how we live and what to do. How manifestation, once we understand why, we can change the how and we can make it different. And by learning how to do it differently, we do it differently, and then we come back full circle over action, and we come back to what we have output, what we responded with, what we output in our wisdom of right action and the rhetoric. That output is available for input again. So other people output and it's available for our input. We output and it's available for other people's input. These effects and events affect us, and it becomes a stimulus and input. This is more grammar and knowledge, who, what, where, when that has manifested, and we put it into our thoughts, and we keep going round and round. This is, I guess I could call it the circle of life instead of the tree of life from image number 2. It's the circle. This is how things work. This is how we process our lives. And this is the last infographic I made. Because after I made all the other ones pretty much, I started making more connections, more contemplation, more reflection, or meditation if you want to call it. It's all the same. I don't do the classic meditation that other people do, but look at where I am. You can meditate in other forms. It's a word that represents certain things, so if you want to define it a certain way, well, you can define it in a way that actually has practical use. Or you can define it in a flip-flop way about, oh, well, bring inner peace and deal with your life and deal with the stress in your life and de-stress and get into an inner good, feel joyous, harmonious state and full of love and all that. Okay, if you need that and use it for that, go for it. I don't use it for that. I use it more constructively to get an understanding of reality, and I call it contemplation and reflection. But from what I understand, that's also meditation. It's not the passive kind of meditation where you just sit and do nothing. I meditate by doing things. I exercise. Meditation, contemplation, reflection comes in and I get insights. I make correspondences. I make interconnections of different patterns. Anyways, this whole hype on meditation, I think it's really overblown. And if you need to heal with it, heal with it. If you need to use plant consciousness to heal and heal a certain modality of your life, an aspect of your being, well, go for it. But the whole using constantly and drifting off into fantasy cloudland and and believing that you're a channeler of shit and you can see into other dimensions and those dimensions are what matter. They're the causal realm for our dimension. You're getting into a bunch of bullshit. You're not grounded in reality. You're in fluffy puff, rosy colored, smoke up your ass, glitter sparkle, new age land of ooh, fifth and fourth dimension, I'm in another dimension. You're chasing all these other things and you're not dealing with the world. You're not dealing with your actions in the world, with your wrong actions. You're not reflecting and contemplating on yourself. All you're doing is getting lost in your feel-good escapism of meditation. You're not using meditation constructively to do what I do, to make all these infographics, to synthesize different aspects of understanding. I did it with natural law and the trivium and levels of consciousness. Now I'm doing it with causality, levels of consciousness, and the trivium and logic itself. I'm putting work out based on understandings I have and understandings and connections that I create that I didn't get from other people. That's the real use for meditation and contemplation and reflection. As far as I see it, you want to escape into internal feel-good states because your life is stressful and your life is shit. I guess it's a form of healing. You smoke pot all the time or do plant consciousness and that helps you. I don't think it does. Not if you do it all the time. It's just an excuse. My life is shit, so my life is boring, my life is stressful, the society's crap, the world is going to crap, so I need to escape, I need to feel good about myself, I need to forget. It's not what's right. You can choose to do it, but stop validating it as what's necessary and, only if you do this are you going to evolve consciousness. No, what you're doing is escapism. Feel good inner states. It's new age deception. It's all about feeling good. You're not focused on your shadow, on fixing yourself, on healing, on sublimating, purifying, transmuting, changing, bettering, improving, evolving. That's the whole point, is to evolve consciousness. You're not going to do that by escaping into internal feel-good states of non-reflection and non-contemplation about your actions and behaviors and whether you are actually engaging in wrong action or right action. If you ignore all that, you're not going to evolve in consciousness. You're just escaping it. And just more escapism. So learn to let go of crutches and attachments on things that make you feel good about yourself. They have you escaping into other dimensions of reality, if that's what they really are, and not just your own delusional imagination. And if it is real, why do you think escaping to those realms is more important than dealing with the world we have in front of us and trying to make it better? The only way it's going to become better is if you make yourself better. And if you're not dealing with the animal issue, then you're not making yourself better. You're not helping to make anyone else better. And you're not helping to make this planet a better place. You're actually making things worse because you're not facing truth, because you don't care for truth really. You're not embracing truth. You're not integrating it with you. So you're not going to change. You're going to keep creating evil in the world. You're going to keep creating harm, enslavement, exploitation, violence, and murder. Because you don't want to face yourself in truth and honesty and self-respect. That's what spiritual alchemy is about. But people don't want to do this, and they still want to believe that they're spiritual, that they're evolved in consciousness. They might be to a certain degree, but their left or right brain imbalance is preventing them from actually recognizing the true condition of their current state of being. And that is of still being highly flawed and highly in rejection and denial of truth and root causal factors of core foundational principles of truth. Still in denial of that. Anyways, that's the end of my explanation of the importance of truth and the importance of foundational integration and coherence with truth so that we can live our lives and build structures and constructs based upon those foundations which are actually solid, grounded in this reality, not in another fucking place, but in this reality. They're solid, they're strong, they're integrated, they're consistent, they're congruent, and they're grounded in this reality, in the truth of what is truth, love, good, right, morality, natural law, true self, higher will, source, spirit, God, etc. Because all those things are the same. All these people who can't face the animal issue aren't really in connection with their higher self. They claim that the higher self communicates with them and channels to them information. Well, then why hasn't the higher self communicated this core foundational aspect of truth to you so that you can stop engaging in wrong? Well, it's not because you're not actually communicating with it. That's just only in your mind, in the delusional fantasy you create about yourself to give yourself a certain level of self-worth and self-value, and to feel good about yourself and your position in the universe, your worldview and your self-image. That's all it is. Why is that the case? Because your actions betray your words. Your actions betray your beliefs in yourself. See, what you need to look at, what counts, is what manifests, what each person manifests, our actions and our behaviors. And from that we can tell what's going on internally with each person by what they manifest. We can see I have eyes to see inside of people, into the root causal factors that generate the manifestations they generate. I can see it. Once you understand enough about how this works in psychology, you know the motivational factors that cause produces effect. So when you see an effect, you know what the cause is. It's like simple math. Effect, well, okay, there's the cause, because I understand the cause and effect relationship while others don't. So I guess that's it. Well, I have a bunch of other stuff in a text file to read. I was going to read it, but it would just drag things on even longer, and it's stuff about unity and gradualism, and clarifying that, but I think I've talked enough so far. It's over 3.5 hours. Hopefully this won't be a destitute recording that no one listens to, like my Truth and Truth is Love audio. But anyways, for those who come across this, I hope you find it very valuable, because I've put in a lot of time making these graphics and taking the internal core depth of understanding that I live my life by, and trying to put it into pictures using my creativity and my imagination, because I do have more of a balanced brain than I have a not balanced brain. I still have brain imbalances, but when I look at other people on Facebook and in groups and the way they manifest their internal root causal factors through their actions and behaviors of what they write, wow. I'm like, holy crap. I'm way more balanced than they are. Even though I'm imbalanced in left and right brain, I have both in different capacities, but I have creativity, I have imagination, I have analysis and logic. Those things I have very well constructed. And imagination and creativity I've had since I was a child, and I've drawn. I just haven't developed it very much. But I recognize many points of imbalance I have. But I also have a lot of balance. And I think that's pretty evident through the degree of clarity and high definition upon which I can expound for certain concepts and subjects and understandings, as I've done with this audio and previous ones in my articles. So I guess that's it. Not to toot my own horn, but I think this is pretty, this last one, image 23, I think this is a pretty awesome infographic. Speaking for myself, I was like, wow, look what I made. I think it's great. It has a lot of information, and it explains the circle of life, how things interconnect from person to person. And anyways, I hope all these images have been informative to some degree for people who listen to it or come across them. And thank you very much for listening. For those who have listened, I appreciate it. Thank you for listening. I'm not doing this for me. I do it for me partially because through my teaching I understand things more deeply, as I've come to understand. Whoops, microphone fell. As I've come to understand things more deeply, as I've expressed my internal nature externally for others to understand. So I keep learning from myself, but I do this primarily to share it with other people. So I really do want people to come across this information because I understand its value and how it has changed my life. I've gotten it from other sources, information here and there, and I'm aggregating this information like what Mark Passio does, like what other people do and have done in the past. I'm putting it out there for other people to get a concise, collated picture, rather than go figure it out from a bunch of different sources that you'll have to stumble upon or find. Well, I've come across different sources and I'm putting this all into a visual representation because visually we can understand this a lot better than through text. So I'm visually describing it, and I'm describing it through the text of audio rather than writing it down, because I know many people don't like to read. So none of this is written down other than in these pictures. And thank you for listening. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I hope you have gotten some value out of it, as there's a lot of value in here. And see you next time, I guess. This is Chris Nelson signing off. Have a good one. Take care. Peace.